Chapter 215. Congratulations to player Military Governor. This is the first time your party has cleared the Eating Instance dungeon. Furthermore, you have obtained an SS rating. Every member of your party will enjoy 10 times the chance of twisting the egg. Your party has achieved an F rating. You could do an egg twisting once. 0791 expressionlessly waved his hand on the large coffee table. A row of 6 egg twisting machines appeared on the coffee table. It seemed that he wanted Gahan and the other 5 to twist the egg together. Logically speaking, it was definitely more exciting to twist the egg in a party than to twist the egg alone. Even if you managed to twist the golden egg alone, it would be the same. It was fine if you cheered for a while. However, once the party twisted the egg together, it would be a lot of fun. A white egg could make you laugh at your teammates for half a day. Similarly, a purple egg could make your teammates hug your thighs and beg you to bring them to Europe. Are we going to twist the egg together or individually? Hongyu looked at the egg twister in front of her and asked eagerly. There were generally 2 ways to twist the egg in a party. The first way was for everyone to twist the egg at the same time. Then, every time they twisted the egg, they would compete with each other, compare, flatter, and ridicule each other's luck. The advantage of twisting the egg this way was that it was fast. Moreover, if one failed the first time, there would be another chance to compete. The second method was for one person to finish the number of times they could twist the eggs, and then switch to the next person to twist the eggs one by one. This method was slower, but it was the best way to test a person's character. Both methods were very enjoyable. Let's do it together. It's more fun this way. Guhan laughed. Compared to twisting the egg alone, twisting the egg with a party was indeed more fun. They had not even started twisting the egg yet, but he felt that the atmosphere was about to explode. Military Governor, I, Steel Centipede, admit that I may not be as smart as you. However, when it comes to luck, you are definitely no match for me, Steel Centipede. When Steel Centipede heard Gahan say that they should twist the egg together, he immediately jumped up and patted his chest forcefully, provoking him loudly. Since he could not beat this man in terms of intelligence, he would beat him in terms of luck. However, Steel Centipede obviously did not know that he had already raised a huge flag for himself. Steel Centipede took the lead and pressed hard on his own egg machine. The machine spun for a long time. In the end, an embarrassing thing happened. A white egg rolled out. Congratulations to player Steel Centipede Meatball. You have obtained a white egg. You have obtained 1 yuan from twisting it. 0791 impolitely read out the answer that almost made Steel Centipede Meat Centipede's heart collapse. It's no big deal. White will come out sooner or later. Steel Centipede Meat Centipede said forcefully. Steel Centipede Centipede. It's no big deal. White egg centipede white centipede. Congratulations, player Hongyu. You have obtained a white twisted egg. You have extracted 1 yuan from it. White lotus. Ha! Hongyu, you still have a nerve to laugh at me? Ha! I'm dying of laughter. Seeing that Hongyu's result was exactly the same as his, Steel Centipede almost fell off the sofa with laughter. But then, the Yu siblings slapped Steel Centipede's face. Both of them twisted a blue egg at the same time. Moreover, these 2 blue eggs miraculously produced 2 sword scar raw stones. These were 5th grade sword scar powder, which required 625 portions of sword scar powder to produce 1 portion of sword scar raw stone. It was meant for a 5th grade sword lady, and it was considered a very good reward among the blue eggs. The market price was around 800 renminbi. Steel Centipede looked at the Yu siblings enviously, then looked at Magic Pen and Gahan. At this time, only the 2 of them were not twisting their eggs. Magic Pen smiled and twisted the capsule machine in front of Gahan. A white capsule came out, and it was still 1 yuan. Gahan followed closely behind. He also got a white egg, but it was no longer $1. Instead, it was a token of the white iron sword. Gahan had lost count of the number of times he had gotten the token of the white iron sword. In short, the Yu siblings won a good prize in the first round. They were so excited that they kissed each other on the spot. Damn it, I don't believe that it's still going to be a white thing. La 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 la, I'm going to at least twist out a blue egg this time. The Iron Centipede continued to raise flags for himself without holding back. Congratulations to player Steel Centipede. You have obtained a white egg. You have twisted 1 yuan from it. 0791's voice was calm and emotionless, but in Steel Centipede's ears, it sounded like the most profound mockery. Damn it, I don't want to live anymore. Steel Centipede sat on the sand angrily and scratched his ears desperately. The feeling of being laughed at was really terrible. You're just an Antarctic man. Don't even think about becoming a European. Think of a way to get to Africa first, Hong Yu said mockingly. Then, she pressed a button on the capsule machine. Congratulations to player Hong Yu. You have obtained a white egg. You have twisted 1 yuan from it. Ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. I'm really dying of laughter. Steel Centipede lay on the sand and laughed until his stomach hurt uncontrollably. I forgot to mention that I'm also from Antarctica. Hong Yu's words sounded very calm. However, the emphasis that she emphasized through gritted teeth was definitely not calm. I'll do the next one. Seeing Steel Centipede's expression, Gohan could not help but cut in line and twist his own egg. Congratulations, Commander. You've obtained a purple twisted egg. From within, you've extracted the Leifeng Pagoda Crusade Mission Crusade letter. Unexpectedly, with just a twist, Gohan actually extracted a purple twisted egg. The Leifeng Pagoda Crusade mission might not be a rare crusade mission. However, in terms of rewards, it was top-notch. In particular, the Leifeng Pagoda Crusade mission had a 0.001% chance of dropping a keepsake of the Emperor Wa's sword. This was an Emperor Sword Lady. A keepsake of the Emperor Wa's sword was sold for 900 million yuan in the market. Of course, it was simply wishful thinking to think that a keepsake of the Emperor Wa's sword could be obtained from a Leifeng Pagoda Crusade mission. However, it would be very easy to sell it for a few 100,000 yuan in the auction house. In terms of value, it was already worth the purple egg. I don't want to live anymore. I'm going to kill you, military governor. Steel Centipede pounced on Gohan like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey. Logically speaking, if Gohan wanted to dodge, Steel Centipede would not be able to hit Gohan no matter what. However, Gohan had no intention of dodging. He allowed Steel Centipede to pounce on him and throw him onto a pile of sand. Steel Centipede sat on Gohan's lap. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at Gohan's face. Gohan accidentally threw a large mouthful of sand into his mouth, which was filled with a bitter taste. Gohan did not want to be outdone. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at Steel Centipede's head. The two of them instantly started a yellow sand battle, which involved all the surrounding team members. The Yu siblings also joined the battle. Finally, it was Gohan who threw a few handfuls of sand onto her beautiful hair. Immediately, Hong Yu became angry. She let out a strange cry and grabbed 2 handfuls of sand and threw them at Gohan's body. It was clearly thrown at Gohan. Why did it hit Steel Centipede instead? Forget it. It doesn't matter. Losing Steel Centipede is not a big deal. With a leap, Hong Yu also rode on Gohan's face. Ahem, that's right, it was Gohan's face. Because Steel Centipede was already riding on her, Hong Yu was too embarrassed to fight with Steel Centipede. She also did not want to get too close to Steel Centipede. So she simply rode on Gohan's face and grabbed a few handfuls of sand and threw it wildly. It's a little wet. Hong Yu did not seem to realize that her absolute domain was still directly riding on Gohan's face. Although there was still a small piece of underwear between them, Gohan's nostrils had already been inhaled by Steel Centipede. When the final battle ended, except for Magic Pen, who was sitting safely in his seat, everyone else was lying on the desert with sand all over their bodies. 0791 did not urge them to hurry up and twist their eggs. Instead, he looked at this somewhat cute battle on the battlefield with an expression as if he was watching a show. Lying on the sand and gasping for breath, Gohan suddenly had 2 drops of something wet flowing down from the corners of his eyes. Don't misunderstand, Gohan was not being stung by the smell. Instead, how many years had it been since he had experienced such pure happiness? Ever since he was 6 years old, he had suppressed his emotions for 12 years. He had lived a serious and bitter life for 12 years. At that time, he felt that even a little bit of happiness was a blasphemy to his dead relatives. He felt that he did not deserve to have happiness. Only killing Yuan Ko to avenge his parents was his life's goal. However, ever since he became a swordsman, this unsmiling, cold, and unapproachable personality and persona seemed to have gradually drifted away from him. He smiled more and more sincerely. For example, the way he was fooling around with a bunch of people today was something that he would never have imagined a month ago. All right, get up and continue twisting your eggs. Don't let Yao Guang wait too long. Gohan patted the sand off his body. Even though his attitude towards life was gradually changing, his life's goal remained the same. Killing all of the Yuan Kos was his life's goal. To correct himself, those filthy Yuan Kos, those Yuan Kos whose hands were stained with the blood of his parents. After a bout of fun, the atmosphere in the scene eased up quite a bit. Everyone began to seriously twist their eggs until the entire process was over. Among everyone, Gohan's luck was still the best. There was only one golden and one blue egg left in the capsule machine. The other items weren't worth mentioning, but the purple egg had miraculously produced the Tai Yi sword scabbard. It was the exclusive scabbard for the Tai Yi sword, which could increase all of the Tai Yi sword's attributes by 50% and its recovery speed by 600%. Others might not be interested in the Tai Yi sword scabbard, but there was one person who was definitely interested in the Tai Yi sword scabbard. This person was none other than O General. Her sword mistress was the Tai Yi sword, a spirit sword ranked 9th in the spirit sword record. Chapter 216. How about selling this scabbard to me? I can buy it for 40 million renminbi. Wondrous Pen's eyes lit up at the sight of the scabbard. He offered 40 million renminbi right off the bat. This price was almost equal to the price of a whole set of heavenly sword keepsakes. Wondrous Pen was really generous. However, this wasn't surprising. Wondrous Pen was clearly trying to curry favor with Ojin by buying this scabbard. For someone like him who had been undercover for more than 10 years, he wouldn't have any connections or resources when he returned to the gang. If he returned, he would probably be placed in a low-level yamen and wouldn't be put in an important position. As such, Ingenious Brush urgently needed to establish a good relationship with Ogino so that it could stay in the Emperor's heart. The Tai Yi sword's exclusive scabbard was the best present for him. This was a rare item that Ogino couldn't even buy with money. However, Gohan didn't intend to let Wondrous Pen have his way. He put the scabbard back into his yuan pocket. I have other uses for this scabbard, so I won't be selling it. That's a pity. Wondrous Pen's expression was one of regret. However, he didn't pester Gohan to buy this scabbard. In fact, he had already prepared a gift that Ojin and Ojin couldn't refuse. This scabbard was just the icing on the cake. Apart from Gohan's luck, which was explosively good, which allowed him to obtain a spirit sword grade scabbard, the rest of the members weren't so lucky. Even if it was a purple toy egg, they only obtained something worth less than 50,000 renminbi. It couldn't even compare to a strand of Gohan's scabbard. However, the toy egg was only the beginning. After the egg twisting was over, the most important reward would be revealed. As mentioned before, there was an incomparable super reward for clearing a dungeon. All the items dropped in the dungeon would be listed out, allowing the participating players to pick any one of them. That's right, they could pick any one of the items dropped in the dungeon. Although the toy egg that was produced from the toy egg machine seemed to be able to be produced from any item. However, in reality, the reward of a toy egg produced from a dungeon would be limited to a certain range. For example, instance dungeons below the level of famed swords would definitely not be able to produce a peerless treasure like green sever hair. However, every instance dungeon would have a few unique and precious super treasures with pitifully low drop rates. For example, the Yu King trampling the sword instance dungeon would produce a peerless sword maiden like the Yu King trampling the sword, but its pitiful drop rate of 0.00001 would cause all players to despair. However, this reward completely ignores the issue of probability. As long as this instance dungeon's drop warehouse contains severed green silk, you can directly take it. Isn't that awesome? That was also the reason why Hong Yu and the others had given up on clearing instance dungeons and fighting crusades. Instead, they had spent over a month in this hidden instance dungeon. Otherwise, which fool would do something that could end in vain for the sake of the sword faction's honor? Respected players, the instance dungeon's treasure trove is about to open. Are you ready? After distributing all the toy capsule rewards and putting away the toy capsule machine, 0791 clapped his hands and a huge bronze gate appeared out of thin air in the Sahara Desert. The words King Arthur's Betrayal were written on the top of the bronze gate. This bronze gate was the entrance to the instance dungeon's treasure trove. Inside it were all the possible items that could be dropped from the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon. Ready, let's go in. Gahan nodded his head and took the lead. He walked to the entrance of the bronze gate. 0791 clapped his hands again and the bronze gate opened. Gahan led his team into the bronze gate and found that the interior of the gate did not look like a treasure trove. Instead, it looked more like a supermarket. That's right, the interior of the bronze gate looked like a supermarket. The interior was brightly lit and rows of shelves were neatly arranged. They were divided into the Sword Maiden token section, the practical item section, the Sword Maiden equipment section, the consumable section, the crusade section, and so on. There were a total of 12 sections. All the possible items that could be dropped from Sword Maiden Online will be placed in these 12 sections. Gahan first walked around the Sword Maiden section. The Sword Maiden section was the largest section in the supermarket. There were hundreds of shelves and thousands of different Sword Maiden tokens were placed there. Guhan did not even bother looking at the Sword Maiden's keepsake. Who knew how long it would take for him to gather 10 keepsakes? Guhan's main target was the shelf that only had 6 complete Sword Maidens on it. Just like how Gahan was able to pull out a complete Sword Maiden in the King Yuzgo Jian dungeon, it was also possible to pull out a complete Sword Maiden in the instance dungeon. However, the probability of this happening was very small, and the number of Sword Maidens that could be pulled out was pitifully small. From this shelf, it could be seen that in the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon, there were only 6 complete Sword Maidens that could be pulled out. These 6 complete sword ladies were the famed Sword Ranks Demon Sacrifice Sword, the famed Sword Ranks Startling Sword, and the famed Sword Ranks Heaven Regicide Sword. Putting aside the Demon Sacrifice Sword and the Startling Sword, they were both ranked towards the bottom of the famed sword ladies. However, the Heaven Regicide Sword was ranked 3rd in the famed sword record. Ling Yun of the Great Azure Waves team used the Heaven Regicide Sword. The other 3 were the Spirit Sword Grade Gigantic K Sword and the Spirit Sword Grade 6 Dao Sword. The last one was the Immortal Sword Grade Mountain Guard Sword. Among these swords, the Immortal Sword Grade Mountain Guard Sword was naturally the most valuable, followed by the 2 Spirit Swords, and finally the 3 Famed Swords. Logically speaking, the most valuable items in this room were the 3 Sword Maidens above the Spirit Sword grade. However, Gahan had no interest in owning them. This was because once he chose one of the 6 Sword Maidens, it would be bound to him, unable to be dropped or traded. If he failed to synchronize with them, these 6 Sword Maidens would be no different from scrap metal. Thus, it was as if the others did not even come here to look. They did not have the confidence to synchronize with these Sword Maidens in one go. However, Guhan wasn't interested in them. It wasn't because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to synchronize with them, but because these swords weren't suitable for him. They weren't the strongest in their respective levels, so Guhan wasn't interested in synchronizing with them. On the contrary, when he saw the 3 famed Sword Grade Sword Maidens, Gohan's heart was slightly moved. That was especially so when he saw the Sky Killer Sword. For a moment, Gahan felt the urge to take it. After all, it was the 3rd-ranked famed sword, much higher than the King of Yuzgo Jian sword. Moreover, he could do it in one go, unlike the Heavenly Sword, which required a lot of effort to search. It was also more compatible with his strength, but after thinking about it, Gahan still gave up on the Sky Killer Sword. This was because Guhan's goal had always been the number 1 famed sword, the 3-foot sword. The power of the number 1 famed sword, the 3-foot sword, far surpassed all the Sword Maidens ranked 2nd and below. Moreover, the 3-foot sword was the one and only human path sword, a famed sword that symbolized the entire human race. There were only two human path swords in the world. One was the Emperor's sword, the Xianyuan sword, which had only appeared in legends, and the other was the 3-foot sword. Compared to the Sky Killer sword, the 3-foot sword was more suitable for Gohan's abilities. In Gohan's plan, the 3-foot sword was the number one choice among the famed swords. There was no other choice more suitable than it. Since these 6 swords were of no use to Gohan, he left the shelf and walked around the few thousand Sword Maidens tokens. Of these tokens, 85% were Ancient Sword and Treasure Sword Maidens tokens, 14% were Famed Sword Maidens tokens, and 1% were Spirit Sword and Immortal Sword Maidens tokens. Although the Famed Sword Maidens tokens only took up 14%, almost 90% of the Famed Sword Maidens tokens were for you. This was because the number of Famed Sword Maidens was too small. Compared to the thousands of Treasure Swords and Ancient Swords, there were only a few hundred. Unfortunately, there was no 3-foot sword token among these tokens. Otherwise, Gohan would not have been so conflicted. He could have just taken a 3-foot sword token. However, Gohan also discovered that there was not even a ruler sword token. This was an inconceivable and abnormal thing. Gohan had obtained 3 tokens of the Juzi sword from Luban. Logically speaking, the token of the Juzi sword should also be included in the dungeon's drop range. However, Gohan carefully looked around and found no trace of the token of the Juzi sword. Just when Gohan was a little puzzled, Magic Pen suddenly appeared here. He went straight to the shelf with 6 complete Sword Maidens and directly picked up the Spirit Sword level 6 Dao sword. "You want this 6 Dao sword?" Gohan asked. "Yes, I want her." Magic Pen nodded, his eyes staring at the 6 Dao sword. "I've wanted her for a long time. I didn't expect to see the complete set here. I'm so lucky." Magic Pen, although I don't think highly of you, I still have to remind you that if you choose the 6 Dao sword, once the synchronization fails, you will have nothing. Military Governor, let me ask you a question. Do you know how long I've been stuck at the Spirit Sword level? Magic Pen asked with a smile. I don't know. Gohan shook his head. He was not interested in the matter of Magic Pen. I've been stuck for 5 years. Magic Pen sighed. It's been 5 years. In these 5 years, I've experimented with more than 20 Spirit Sword level Sword Maidens. Almost half of the Spirit Sword level Sword Maidens have been completed. Then, I entered the Sword Pavilion full of expectations and came back dejected. The rest of the untested Spirit Sword level Sword Maidens are too difficult to get. I haven't collected a complete set of Spirit Sword level Sword Maidens for 5 months. It just so happens that this 6 Dao sword is a Spirit Sword level Sword Maiden that I haven't collected before. I want to give it a try. What if this sword succeeds? Magic Pen's face was full of bitterness. Gohan suddenly understood why Magic Pen made this choice. Now, any chance that he could break through to the famous sword level was tightly grasped in his hands. Other than that, nothing else mattered. I wish you success. Gohan patted the Magic Pen's shoulder and then went to another area. He still hadn't found what he wanted, or rather, what he wanted. Chapter 217. Gohan walked around the entire supermarket, but he still did not find anything that interested him. Seeing that the others had found the things they wanted, Gohan gradually became anxious. Gohan wandered from the Sword Lady section to the prop section, and then to the consumables section. After walking through 7 or 8 sections, he still did not see anything that could make his eyes light up. He only found a bottle of Sword Element Oral Solution in the consumables section, which was what Gohan needed. However, this bottle of Sword Element Oral Solution was purple in color, and it could only increase the amount of Sword Element by 200 quarks. It would not be of much help to Gohan in reality. What Gohan needed was a prop that could greatly improve his strength in the competition, not the 200 quarks of Sword Element in reality. After walking around for a long time, the only section that Gohan had not been to was the special prop section. Gohan had the idea of going to the consumable section to get his hands on a bottle of Sword Element Oral Solution. After walking around the special props section, his eyes suddenly lit up. He found an interesting little thing. It was a dusty little thing that was placed at the bottom of the shelf. It looked inconspicuous. Gahan picked it up and looked at its name. Instantly, his face was full of smiles. He did not expect this thing to be dropped. His reward was it. Gahan was the last to leave the treasure vault. The others had already picked out their items, but Gahan did not know what they had chosen. Only Steel Centipede was happily showing off to the others with a gorgeous wash basin. Gahan recognized this wash basin because he also had one. It was the cornucopia that he had obtained from the Jinyuan Garrison Crusade mission. It was a magical prop that could turn one treasure into two. After leaving the treasure vault, Gahan found that everyone was looking at him a little strangely. There seemed to be some reluctance in their eyes. This was normal. When the treasure vault was officially closed, it meant that the temporary team was officially disbanded. Gahan was also about to leave the Yaoguang sword faction and return to his days of being alone. Military governor, let's meet again. The Yu siblings smiled at Gahan. Gahan nodded. Of course, we will meet again if there is a chance. Military governor, although I still don't like you, I, Gangmong, admire you. If you have any problems in the future, look for me, Gangmong. As long as I, Gangmong, can do it, I won't refuse. I'll treat you as my friend. Steel Centipede patted his chest. Just as Steel Centipede had said, his relationship with Gahan was definitely the worst in the team, but he still admired Gahan. He admired Gahan's intelligence and ability. No matter how bad their relationship was, this kind of admiration would come from the bottom of his heart and could not be stopped. I have nothing else to say. I'm leaving. I hope we won't be opponents in the future. Magic Pen waved his hand and left the Instance Dungeon's settlement center. He had already died in the Instance Dungeon. If he hadn't wanted to receive the reward with his teammates, he would have probably been kicked out of the game for 3 days like Gahan. This time, he immediately left the Instance Dungeon's settlement center. The next time he went online would be 3 days later. After Magic Pen said his goodbyes, Hong Yu was the only one who hadn't spoken to Gahan. In the last Instance Dungeon, it could be seen that Hong Yu had secretly become Gahan's assistant. She helped Gahan complete many of the things that he had privately instructed her to do. In the team, the one who had the best relationship with Gahan was undoubtedly Hong Yu. I've decided. Hong Yu suddenly walked toward Gahan with graceful steps. She wrapped her arms around Gahan's neck, raised her head, and stared into Gahan's eyes. I want to pursue you. I want you to become my Hong Yu's man. This sudden confession was too sudden. Not only did Gahan not react, but even Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings, who were watching from the side, were also stunned. Hong Yu, didn't you want to pursue our Yaoguang sect leader and marry him? Why did you change your mind so quickly? Aren't you afraid that sect leader Yaoguang will be sad if he finds out? Steel Centipede shouted loudly. Enough. Yaoguang has rejected me, Hong Yu, over 100 times. Hong Yu, don't like him anymore. This military governor is several times better than Yaoguang. Hong Yu doesn't want that stinky Yaoguang anymore. Hong Yu stuck out her tongue at Steel Centipede. She wanted to say something to Gahan, but unexpectedly, Gahan leaped out of Hong Yu's embrace. Hong Yu, I don't have any plans to be with anyone for now. You found the wrong person. Just give up. After saying that, Gahan's figure gradually faded away. Finally, he disappeared from the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center. After leaving the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center, Gahan directly returned to his sword catacomb. He told King Yu and Heavenly Reliance that he would be offline for a long time. He estimated that he would not be able to come back online for 4 to 5 days. Heavenly Reliance appeared to be very indifferent. However, she moved closer to Gahan to curry favor. Hey, Husky, you can leave, but you have to leave something behind. What is it? Gahan was momentarily confused. What does Heavenly Reliance want me to leave behind? Is it a hug of love? Of course not. Heavenly Reliance waved her palm and made a gesture of taking out money. Of course it's money. You'd better leave at least 1 to 200,000. Otherwise, this heroine won't even have enough money to drink. This heroine had discovered that after Gahan left, she had no money to buy alcohol. Thus, she urged Gahan to leave behind some pocket money. Is this enough? Gahan took out 50,000 renminbi and handed it to Heavenly Reliance. Thanks, Husky. I'll give you 1. Heavenly Reliance quickly kissed Gahan's face. Then, She took the money and walked out happily. This action of hers was similar to that of a goddaughter begging her godfather for money. It was indeed similar. After satisfying Heavenly Reliance's needs, it was time for King Yu's. However, King Yu seemed to be much easier to deal with than Heavenly Reliance. She simply waved her hand and impatiently indicated that she only wanted to watch TV shows online. Forget about 4 to 5 days. Gahan could even stay offline for 4 to 5 months without any problems. All right then, see you next week. Gahan waved at King Yu. His figure gradually became indifferent. This time, he disappeared from the game world. Ugh, stinky military governor, rotten person, ugh. King Yu suddenly pounced on the keyboard. Her face kept scrolling on the keyboard. Deep marks accompanied by tears soaked her cheeks and skin. Gahan, you're finally awake. You've been inside for so long this time. You didn't even come out to play with Qingpin. Qingpin doesn't like you anymore. As soon as Gahan opened his eyes, he saw Qingpin riding on him. Qingpin was wearing the panda suit he bought last time. However, because Qingpin's head was too small, the two black and white ears didn't appear on either side of Qingpin's ears like the designer of the panda suit had imagined. Instead, they were planted on Qingpin's head. They looked like a pair of cute horns. This cute thing, you're so adorable that it's killing me. Gohan's heart was fiercely touched by Qingpin's cuteness. He hugged Qingpin's little butt and stood up from the bed. Qingpin, what time is it now? It had been more than 30 hours since Gahan logged out of the game. In these 30 hours, Gahan had been researching and planning the final strategy to clear the dungeon, so he hadn't logged out of the game. When he woke up, he couldn't tell the time in reality. How would I know about this kind of thing? Hey, Sister Maiden, what time is it today? His eyebrows furrowed, and he pushed the responsibility of this task to his personal maid, Maiden. It's 16:56 in the afternoon now. Lady Qingpin, there's still 34 minutes before you start eating. Please don't worry. Your dompa pork is already simmering on the stove. Maiden thought that Qingpin was asking about the time because he was concerned about when the meal would start. After spending a few days with Qingpin, Maiden had fully understood Qingpin's temperament. This master of hers was probably only interested in pork, especially natural pork. Everything else was not within her scope of concern. Oh no, her master was also something she was seriously concerned about. Every time the Calabash brothers finished broadcasting, Qingpin would run over to Gahan, who was immersed in the game. He would pinch here and there. Occasionally, he would also like to put his own feet into his master's mouth. Gahan thought it was some peerless delicacy, so he licked and ate it happily. However, to be honest, Qingpin's little feet did not have any stench when eaten. On the contrary, it had a strange feeling like sandalwood. Today is the 7th of August in the year 3001, right? Is it going to be night again? Is tomorrow the 8th of August again? When Gahan heard Meiden's report, he silently calculated in his heart. He still remembered that after the Deep Sword Scar class ended, his homeroom teacher, Luo Fan, said that the next practical training class was about to start. Now that he thought about it, it would start the day after tomorrow. There was only one free day left for the solid cold. However, Gahan did not have much time. After dinner today, he still had to spend the whole night organizing and writing a guide for King Arthur's betrayal. At this time, there were probably hundreds of people on the forum eagerly waiting for his guide to be published so that they could rush into the dungeon and start the guide. After tonight, Gahan still had to log into the game the next day. He had some time to communicate with Yao Guang, and he also had to go to the Stormy Wave Sword Sect to collect his wager, the 3-demon subduing sword formation. This was the biggest reason that Gahan won the 8 cities sword duel. Finally, there was one more thing that Gahan had to do before he left the city. This was more important than anything else. It was something that Gahan had never forgotten. Chapter 218. While Gahan and Qingpin were happily eating the pork dishes, the forum was in a frenzy. All sorts of posts about the first clear of the instance dungeon kept popping up. There was one post that was the most popular. The post had a big and eye-catching title: The Beginning of the Decline of a Prosperous Dynasty, the Throne of Kanglin Billows. The post first used an attitude of someone who had seen through the changes of the world. It talked about the metaphysical principle of 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. It pointed out that the upward curve of the Kanglen billows had ended. After the peak, the Kanglen billows had entered a downward curve. The main point of the post was that the Kanglen billows had been defeated by a new player who had teamed up with a sword sect that was not even in the top 10. They had also lost a large amount of sword sect resources and the 3-demon suppression sword formation left by the founder, Gu Jingguan. This huge failure was a sign that the Kanglen billows' strength was rapidly declining. All sorts of bureaucracy prevailed, and all sorts of useless nepotism occupied the top positions of the Kanglen billows. The Kanglen billows was like an old man with an incurable chronic disease. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. The post praised Gohan and the Yaoguang sword sect. It said that the military governor was definitely the most outstanding and dazzling player in the past 30 years. He was much more dazzling than Ogio and Yaoguang from 10 years ago. Whether it was his intelligence or strength, he had crushed the newbies of the same generation. In the future, there would definitely be a place for the military governor at the peak of the gaming world. The post was not exaggerating. It listed the super achievements that the military governor had so far. For example, he was the first SSS rank player to clear the Yu Wang Gojian Sword Instance Dungeon in 200 years. He found the Wu Dang Peak Instance Dungeon Easter egg that no one had found in 200 years. He triggered an Emperor Sword quest to the youngest age. He led the team to snatch the first clear from the Kanglen billows at the youngest age. The military governor's achievements were all real. Gohan had only been in the game for a month, and he had entered the game at the minimum age of 18. He wasn't a veteran who had been fighting outside for more than a decade and entered the game at the age of 30. Just look at the achievements of Yaoguang, who was known as the leader of the new generation, and Jin, who had been in the game for a month. Their combined achievements weren't even 1/4 as dazzling as the military governor. The post even compared the military governor to Gu Jinjindi, who had just entered the game. Even though the author of the post didn't think that the military governor's final achievement would be on par with Gu Jinjindi, he believed that it was possible for him to be second only to Gu Jinjindi. He also guaranteed that the military governor would rule the game for 1 or 2 generations and become the undisputed king of the game. The author used all his strength to praise Gohan from the beginning to the end. Those who didn't know would think that the author was a fake army that the military governor had spent a lot of money to hire. Unbeknownst to them, when Gohan saw the post, he was also confused. Did this person want to curse him to death? Gohan thought that the people who replied to this post were all scolding the OP for being an idiot and scolding the OP for being a water army that he had hired. In the end, when he opened the post to take a look, there was actually a large amount of praise and praise. They all said that the OP had written well and that the Admiral was indeed the future leader. There were even people who tipped the OP a few hundred RMB, praising the OP for speaking their minds. Gohan flipped through more than 10 pages of posts and found that 90% of them agreed with the OP and flattered him. Occasionally, there were 1 or 2 sensible people who felt that the military governor needed more time to observe before making a conclusion. However, they were attacked by the crazy fans of the military governor. In the end, they didn't even dare to say anything bad about him. There's something wrong here. Gohan closed the thread, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile. The author of this thread and the replicant were undoubtedly fake reviewers. However, they weren't the fake army hired by Gohan's supporters. Instead, they were the fake army hired by the enemies who didn't like Gohan. Their purpose was very simple. They wanted to promote Gohan on the internet as high as possible. Everyone might ask, aren't they crazy? Since they were Gohan's enemies, why did they promote him? Shouldn't they slander Gohan in all kinds of ways? Of course, Gohan's enemies weren't crazy. On the contrary, they had high IQs. This was because they knew that if Gohan didn't take the initiative to make a mistake and didn't expose any explosive scandal or failure, it was impossible to discredit Gohan with just their words. Then, in turn, they would promote Gohan. Gohan's current achievements seemed very dazzling, but in fact, there weren't many achievements that could become the cornerstone of Gohan. Now that Gohan was being praised so highly by them, It was like a bottomless platform or a floating cloud in the sky. And if Gahan were to be blinded by these praises and really thought that he was such a powerful person, then due to his arrogance and carelessness, failure was inevitable. Just like a certain reverse Q player before the apocalypse who really believed in the praises of the world's #1 mid laner on the internet. As a result, it would be difficult for him to climb back up after falling for the rest of his life. Gahan was also in the same situation. As long as Gahan made a mistake, then the entire platform would collapse. In the past, Gahan's enemies praised Gahan as highly as Gahan fell. This could be said to be a vicious scheme. Gahan quickly understood all kinds of nonsense, but Gahan didn't intend to deal with these open and covert attacks. In Gahan's opinion, there was no need to do so. Let them praise him as high as they wanted. Anyway, he wouldn't fall for the rest of his life. In addition to this malicious post praising Gahan, there were even more posts begging the military governor to quickly release the strategy guide for King Arthur's betrayal. These gamers kept posting posts like this. Has the military governor's strategy guide been released yet? When will the military governor's strategy guide be released? Military governor begs you to release the strategy guide as soon as possible. My sword lady is dying for it. Military governor, if you release the strategy guide before 7 p.m., I will tip you 1,888 renminbi. Do you believe me? Yes. These were probably the voices urging Gahan to release the strategy guide as soon as possible. These kinds of posts occupied more than half of the main page of the forum. This was a very impressive achievement. Gahan didn't want to keep these gamers in suspense. He was happy to release the strategy guide now, but this wasn't practical. This was because he hadn't written a single word yet. From 6 in the afternoon to 12 in the evening, Gahan finally finished writing the entire guide. It took him a total of 6 hours to do so. The reason it took him so long was not because Gahan was very conscientious and wrote a lot of words. In fact, the total number of words was only about 4,000. In the hands of a web novelist, it would only take 2 hours to finish. The reason why it took 6 hours was because Gahan had been seriously writing this guide. He had listed out many details that could affect the rating, as well as things that needed to be taken note of. When chatting with NPCs, he had listed out all the taboo topics that should not be discussed, and so on. For example, after killing the coyote, he had to remember to clean up the carcass. When talking to Luban, he had to maintain respect for him. When interacting with Artoria, he had to show her enough respect. Finally, Gahan was very considerate. He listed out all the questions he had answered during the college entrance examination, as well as the questions that Gangshan and the others had answered. He even included the standard answers. Of course, this was just a drop in the bucket for the dungeon's question bank. It was only 1%. When the entire strategy guide was finished, Gahan carefully revised it again. He corrected some typos and sentence problems. He named it Military Governor's Post, Guide to the First Clear of King Arthur's Betrayal Instance Dungeon. He set the subscription amount to 5 yuan. After splitting the revenue with the official account of Yawang Sword Sect, he posted the strategy guide. The administrator behind the forum was probably keeping a close eye on Gahan's actions. When he used his alternate account, 12580, to confirm and post the guide, this post was set to be the pinnacle of the forum by the administrator and appeared at the top of the forum. Dear Swordsman Gahan, someone has read your sub-account, Military Governor 12,580's post on the forum. Military Governor's Post, Guide to the First Clear of King Arthur's Betrayal Instance Dungeon. After paying 5 yuan and deducting 20% of the personal income tax, your game account has been automatically credited with 2 yuan. In an instant, Gahan's personal terminal began to crazily accept such subscription messages. Fortunately, Gahan had taken precautions and set up the Do Not Disturb mode. Thus, the series of prompts did not cause his brain to explode. 10 minutes after the post was posted, the number of views of the entire post had exceeded 200,000. Just the subscription fees alone amounted to 500,000 renminbi being transferred into Gahan's account. This didn't include the tipping fees. 100, 588, 1888, 5888, 10,000, etc. All sorts of tipping fees were thrown towards this guidepost. In the tipping statistics section of the post, Guhan could see that the person who had tipped the most was an unknown nouveau riche called Zay Zay is my wife. He had actually tipped this guidepost 100,000 renminbi in one go. This caused Gahan to sigh. The nouveau riches of this world are really willful. By the time Gahan woke up the next morning, the strategy guide had earned Gahan 15 million in subscriptions and 51 million in rewards. Based on Gahan's calculations, the strategy guide should have earned 30 million in subscriptions and 45.02 million in rewards. That would mean a total of 6 million people had read Gahan's strategy guide. The number of readers was still rising. There were a total of 120 million people in the 8 base cities on Earth. It was estimated that there would be a total of 50 million readers in the end. After all, among the 120 million people, about 100 million were poor people who didn't have jobs and could only rely on games to pass their empty spiritual lives. Chapter 219. King Yu, I've decided. From today onwards, I'll give up on Qing Pin, give up on Heavenly Sword, give up on all the sword ladies in the future. I'll stay in the game for the rest of my life and be with you. Gahan held up King Yu's face and said gently, "Annoying, when did I give up on the other sword ladies? When did I say I'll be with you forever? Annoying, annoying, annoying." King Yu lowered his head and looked extremely shy. "You said that you'll be with me in the game for the rest of your life. You're not allowed to go back on your word." "I won't go back on my word. I, Guhan, have cheated the heavens and the earth. I've cheated the people of the world. I won't cheat you, King Yu." Guhan raised his hand and swore to the heavens. "Logically speaking, you, Gahan, have already said that you'll cheat the heavens and the earth and the world. So what's the use of swearing? Isn't swearing lying to the heavens?" However, King Yu didn't seem to notice Gahan's laughable word game. He stood up in surprise and pounced into Gahan's embrace. "Stinky, despicable person. I, King Yu, will crush you to death." "Ouch! It hurts, it hurts, it hurts." King Yu suddenly opened his eyes and saw that he had fallen to the ground. There was a sharp table leg beside his head. It seemed like King Yu had knocked into this table leg. Last night, King Yu had been sitting in front of the computer watching TV. He didn't know when, but he fell asleep on the computer table. It seemed like he was too agitated in his sleep, causing him to fall off the chair and knock into the table leg. Feeling the pain on his forehead and thinking about what happened in his dream, a sense of grievance surged up his heart. "Pah!" King Yu stood up and slammed the computer table. After feeling the vibration, the computer monitor immediately lit up and started to play the TV series that King Yu hadn't finished watching. At this moment, the TV series had entered its climax. The male and female lead who had reunited after a long time threw away everything in their hands and pounced into each other's embrace, enjoying the sweetness of love. This was a heartwarming scene, but in King Yu's eyes, it seemed to be a deep mockery. "How dare you? Even you dare to look down on this king?" King Yu's eyes turned red. "Trash military governor, stinky military governor, trash military governor, despicable military governor. If you have the ability, don't come back to play games. If you have the ability, don't come back to see me. If you have the ability, don't use me. No, don't play me. Anyway, don't come back." King Yu's sword suddenly and slashed at the computer table in front of her. How could this pitiful computer desk and computer withstand King Yu's sword? It was instantly cut in half. The computer screen that was originally playing the TV series was also completely extinguished. "Ziwei, I love you. I swear, I'll never leave you again. You don't know how painful it is for me to love you. I can't watch the stars and the moon with you. I can't talk about life philosophy with you from poems and songs. I'm really in pain. I'm in so much pain. I don't ever want to leave you again. Yongqi, I love you too. I swear that I will never leave you again. I don't know how painful it is for me to love you too. I can't watch the stars and the moon with you, and I can't talk about the philosophy of life with you. I'm really in pain, in pain, in pain. I don't ever want to leave you again. Ziwei, Yongqi." Although the monitor was broken, the mainframe was still intact, and the speaker was still there. The two funny protagonists were still expressing their heartfelt feelings to each other. Then, there was no then. The mainframe was also killed by the angry King Yu. So annoying, annoying, annoying. Trash. Even you dare to bully this king? Even you dare to bully this king? This king will tear your body apart by 5 horses, 10 horses, 100 horses, 1,000 horses, 10,000 horses, 100 million horses. All of you will be torn apart. Torn apart. This pitiful computer desk became King Yu's final punching bag. After being brutally killed by King Yu's inhumane swords, it finally became a pile of unknown electronic components. How inhumane. King Yu, what are you doing? Did this computer offend you? Suddenly, Guhan asked curiously from behind King Yu. None of your business. King Yu retorted without turning his head. He continued to hack at the computer a few more times before suddenly coming to his senses. He turned in horror and saw Guhan's strange face. You, why are you here? King Yu was about to become incoherent. She just couldn't understand why Guhan would appear here and just happened to see her crazy state. Didn't you say that you might not be online for 4 to 5 days? Is that weird? Guhan walked to King Yu's side. You said it yourself. I said it might be 4 to 5 days. Then I might also be online. Just now, in reality, Mingyu came to find me and said that Yao Guang wanted to talk to me about something, so I went online. So it was Mingyu who looked for you back then. That's why you came online. When King Yu heard this, his anger flared up again. If another woman called and Guhan came online, then what did he count as? Well, women hated this. They would always neglect some important things. For example, this time, it was actually Yao Guang who came to find Guhan. Back then, Mingyu was just a mouthpiece. Why is your face so red? Guhan stretched out a hand and touched King Yu's face. As expected, it was very hot, like a volcano. You have a cold and a fever? Guhan rubbed the hand that touched King Yu's face on her forehead. She compared the temperature of the two and came to a conclusion. King Yu, you really have a fever. Get lost. King Yu was about to go crazy. Like a hungry tiger, she pounced on Guhan and pressed Guhan onto the bed. Her pink fist pounded on Guhan's head, body, and legs. Luckily, she maintained her rationality. She didn't take out the King Yu sword and poke a few holes on Guhan's body. All right, stop messing around. Guhan turned around and pressed King Yu onto the bed. King Yu twisted and wanted to resist, but Guhan's legs clamped down and King Yu's entire body went limp. At this moment, the two people's posture could be said to be very ambiguous. Guhan's lower body was kneeling, and her knees were tightly clamped on both sides of Yuang's thighs. Yuang's pair of slender legs were like a pair of ivory jade chopsticks connected together. After Guhan clamped King Yu's thighs, he sat on her snow-white thighs. The two sensitive things under his crotch happened to collide face to face. At the same time, Guhan bent down and gradually pressed his face against King Yu's face. Forehead touched forehead, nose touched nose, lips touched lips. You, what do you want? Let go of this king. King Yu's words were soft and had no confidence at all. There was no decisiveness or threat in his tone. This pitiful little sheep had already fallen. You have a fever. King Yu, you need to cool down. Guhan's face descended once more, allowing his entire face to touch King Yu's face completely. Guhan's breath directly blew onto King Yu's face, making his face even more unbearably hot. King Yu couldn't help but snort. It was like a beautiful young woman who had been widowed for more than 10 years and moaned like rain for the first time. Hurry up and scram. You don't want to see me. Hurry up and scram. All right, then I'll scram. King Yu only said this insincerely, but Guhan seemed to take it seriously. He climbed up from King Yu's body like a customer who had paid and left. I'm leaving. Guhan even tidied up his collar and trousers. Brother, you didn't take off your clothes. Why are you tidying up this thing? Scram. King Yu buried his head in the blanket. His voice was a little muffled. It sounded like he was crying, but after listening carefully, it didn't seem like it. King Yu, I know your intentions. Guhan wasn't an EQ idiot. He was like the main character in the Japanese anime before the apocalypse. The female lead had clearly shown it, but they couldn't seem to see that the female lead liked him. Guhan vaguely understood that King Yu's heart was on him. However, this is a game world. My home doesn't belong here. Sooner or later, I will completely leave the game and won't log into this world. I will find my life goal and dream in the real world outside. I belong to reality. The game is only a necessary way for me to realize my dream. I hope you can understand. Gohan's words were indifferent and very calm, but in King Yu's heart, it was like being cut by a knife. It made King Yu feel like he was in a sea of fire. So, do you want this king to forget you forever? King Yu suddenly sat up from the bed. The 2 tear stains on her cheeks were very obvious. She was really crying. That's good. Go and buy a cherishing fate. That way, we can completely sever our ties. This king will continue to fall into endless slumber and won't have to live like this anymore. I didn't mean that. Gohan shook his head. I won't give up on you. Since you've become my sword mother, I will always be responsible for you. Responsible? How will you be responsible? A trace of anticipation flashed across King Yu's eyes, but there was also a trace of confusion and confusion. Aren't you going to gradually give up on the game? I will synchronize with your main body in the real world. That way, your memories will return to the real world along with your main body. You will still be able to accompany me for the rest of my life. Okay. King Yu nodded. She knew that Gohan was a man who would do what he said. Chapter 220. Mr. Admiral, sorry to trouble you. I've specially asked you to come here. In the meeting room of Yao Wang's sword faction, Yao Wang sat alone on the main seat. There was only a chair beside him and a cup of tea on the table in front of him. Obviously, it was prepared for Gohan. Gohan sat down without hesitation. You don't look too good. After defeating the great waves of storm, the reputation of your Yao Wang sword faction has soared to the sky. Shouldn't you be happy? Gohan noticed that Yao Wang's face was not as happy and excited as he had imagined. On the contrary, there was a lot of worry and cautiousness hanging on his face. He couldn't help but evaluate Yao Wang a little more. This person was unfazed. His future was definitely immeasurable. Victory is victory, but since then, we have formed a huge grudge with the great waves of Storm Sword faction. This will become a huge hidden danger sooner or later. Who knows when it will erupt? When that time comes, all our efforts will be in vain. The gains do not make up for the losses. Yao Wang said with a wry smile. This time, he had intercepted the great waves of Storm Sword faction. It had put him under a lot of pressure. If the first sword faction were to give him a leg up, his Yao Wang sword faction might have to spit out the benefits they had swallowed. These are all obvious things. Yao Wang, since you have foreseen this, why don't you take the initiative to retreat? Gohan said with a smile. Yes, but the meat has been delivered to my mouth. I can't just not eat it, can I? Yao Wang also smiled. Could it be that Mr. Military Governor is willing to give up this delicious piece of meat? Of course I am. Even if it is not delivered to my mouth, I will rush over and take a bite like a wolf. Gohan looked at Yao Wang. He knew that Yao Wang was the same as him. He would never wait for meat to be delivered to his mouth. As soon as he saw traces of meat, he would rush over without hesitation and tear off the biggest piece of meat. This was how the Yao Wang sword sect managed to become a sword sect that was second only to the top 10 sword sects in just a dozen years. Other than the Kanglan sect, when Gu Jinheng rose to power, no other sword sect could reach this speed. Then let's get down to business. Yao Wang took the initiative to end the topic. Just an hour ago, the billowing Storm Sword sect had already delivered all the bets to me as promised. However, there was a small problem. Yao Wang tapped the table lightly. The tripartite demon subduing sword formation isn't included in this wager. They don't want to give it to me? You don't want to keep your promise? Gohan frowned. If that was the case, then there would be trouble. This bet didn't happen in the game, but rather on the forum. The system would not monitor or protect such a wager. In other words, the system would not enforce this wager. If the billowing Storm Sword sect wanted to be thick-skinned and break their promise, Gohan would not be able to do anything to them. No, they just said that since the tripartite demon subduing sword formation wasn't a wager between the Yao Wang sword sect and them, the item should naturally be taken away by the owner. There is no need for the Yao Wang sword sect to do it for them. So, They asked me to tell you to take some time to go to the Billowing Storm Sword sect and take it away. Yao Wang stared at Gahan with interest. He wanted to see how Gahan would react. Anger, helplessness, or a bitter smile. However, it was obvious that Yao Wang had guessed wrongly. Gahan only gave a simple, "Oh," and did not say anything else. This made Yao Wang feel a little awkward. "Mr. Military Governor, what do you plan to do?" After a moment of silence, Yao Wang took the initiative to break the awkwardness and asked, "Wait for a while. I don't have the time to deal with them now." Gohan waved his hand, as if the Billowing Storm Sword sect were some annoying flies and mosquitoes. He had a completely indifferent attitude. "Is that so?" Yao Wang took a sip of tea. This military governor was really hard to read. No one could tell what he was thinking or thinking. "You didn't ask me to come here just to tell me about the Billowing Storm Sword sect, right?" Gohan blew on the steaming hot tea. He was acutely aware that Yao Wang did not ask him to come here for something as simple as handing over the bet. As expected, nothing can be hidden from you, Military Governor. That's right, there is a very troublesome matter that I would like Mr. Military Governor to help me worry about. I wonder if Mr. Military Governor is willing to help us, Yao Wang Sword Sect. Troublesome matter. Gahan pondered for a moment. But you guys are preparing to challenge for the seat of the eternal Autumn Water Sword Sect. Clang! The tea in Yao Wang's hand almost fell onto the table. He looked at Gahan with fear in his eyes. What was Gahan's brain made of? His words were still brewing in his head, and he said it out loud. This man was too scary, too scary. What's there to be surprised about? Gahan smiled. This time, your Yao Wang Sword Sect obtained a huge amount of rewards for the first clear of the instance dungeon. You also defeated the invincible golden body of the Billowing Storm Sword Sect and obtained an unimaginable reputation. Now, you even snatched away so many construction resources from the hands of the Billowing Storm Sword Sect. Your Yao Wang Sword Sect is probably going to develop to the point where it aims to conquer the world. Coveting the position of one of the top 10 sects is only natural. By the way, I also participated in the crusade quest where your precious little sister, Mingyue, received the establishment decree. I know that you have an establishment decree in your hands. You don't even have the last thing stopping you guys from challenging the eternal Autumn Water Sword Sect. Given your personality, how could you not be interested in that position? Every single word that Gohan said struck Yao Wang's heart. They were all what Yao Wang was thinking. Ever since the establishment of the Yao Wang Sword Sect, it had developed rapidly. It had become an existence that was second only to the 10 Great Sword Sects. Naturally, it coveted the position of the 10 Great Sword Sects. In order to enter the 10 Great Sword Sects, it was only natural that one of the original 10 Great Sword Sects would have to be ousted and replaced. In order to challenge the 10 Great Sword Sects, 2 conditions must be fulfilled. The first condition was that one's own sword sect had reached the level of aspire to rule the world. Only by reaching that level would one have the qualifications to challenge the 10 Great Sword Sects. The second condition was that one must have the establishment decree. In order to challenge the 10 Great Sword Sects, one must first find the Sword Sect Management Committee under the Sword Council. Then, with the establishment decree and half of one's own sect's resources as the price, one must issue a challenge to the last place in the 10 Great Sword Sects. If the challenger won, half of the resources would be returned. If the challenger lost, the other half of the resources would be given to the 10th place Sword Sect. The reason why these 2 rules were set up was to prevent too many challenges to the 10 Great Sword Sects. Without these restrictions, some of the smaller sword sects would challenge the 10th place sword sect every day. Then, the 10th place sword sect would not be able to survive. They would just be harassed to death. The development of a sword sect to aspire to rule the world required a large amount of resources and a vast amount of reputation. These 2 things required a lot of time to accumulate. Even Yao Guang's sword sect, led by a powerhouse like Dazzling Light, had spent more than a decade to gather the resources and reputation needed to level up to aspire to rule the world. However, Gahan had helped Yao Guang's sword sect obtain the first clear of the instance dungeon. He had also swindled a large amount of resources from Great Storm Waves. This instantly allowed Yaoguang's sword sect to gather the resources and reputation needed to level up to aspire to rule the world. That was why Yaoguang's sword sect had gritted its teeth and agreed to Gahan's surprisingly risky challenge. Although the risk was high, the reward of success was also great. It was so great that Yaoguang's sword sect could save a few years to realize its ambition. Next was the establishment decree. This item was limited to 2 per year, and it caused the other people who wanted a challenge for the position of the 10 greatsword sects to feel troubled. There were too many ambitious people, and there were also too many people who wanted to establish their own sections. The number of establishment decrees they produced was not even enough to establish a sword sect. Who would be willing to use them to challenge the 10 greatsword sects? What's more, they had to take out half of their own sect's resources as a bet. Once they lost, the entire sect would completely collapse and then be unable to recover. That was why most of the sect leaders of the sword sects were not interested in doing something that had a high possibility of losing both their lives and their wealth. In the past 30 years, the number of challenges to the 10 great sword sects could be counted on one hand. There were about 8 to 9 times. Among them, there was only one victory, which was against the current 5th-ranked 10,000 longevity sword sect. The rest had all failed, and those sword sects that failed had basically withdrawn from the stage of history due to various disputes after their failure, never to rise again. Especially the current 10th-ranked Eternal Autumn Water Sword sect. It was established at the same time as Great Storm Waves. Its first sect leader was Yesterday's Snow, who had a tangled relationship with Gujin. It was said that the two of them were originally childhood sweethearts and had been decided to be a couple. Unfortunately, the world changed, and this couple eventually parted ways, establishing their own sword sects in succession, and then killing their way into the 10 great sword sects. However, Gujin's Great Storm Wave sword sect advanced triumphantly all the way, becoming the number one of the 10 great sword sects and dominating the world. Meanwhile, the Eternal Autumn Water Sword sect, which had snowed yesterday, had gradually fallen. In recent years, they had fallen to the last position. If not for the great waves of azure waves secretly helping them, the Eternal Autumn Water Sword sect might have already fallen out of the top 10. Therefore, the Eternal Autumn Water Sword sect had become the best target for Yaoguang's sword sect. Since they had already become enemies with Great Storm Waves, they did not care about what happened to Great Storm Waves. Yaoguang had already made up his mind to take down the Eternal Autumn Water Sword sect. I've already broken through and become an immortal sword-tier sword wielder. Yaoguang opened his mouth and revealed another extremely explosive piece of news. To think that Yaoguang had already broken through spiritual sword tier and become an immortal sword-tier sword wielder. Originally, I had already drawn up a detailed plan that could completely take down the Eternal Autumn Water. Even if Great Storm Waves helped them, it would be useless. At this point, Yaoguang smiled bitterly. But I never expected that marvelous pen, who had been with me for 12 years, was actually a spy. He was the one who had drawn up this plan. With his departure, my plan was completely exposed. More importantly, with Marvelous Pen's departure, I've lost a powerful famed sword tier battle power. In this case, there's a high chance that I'll lose the battle, so I have to make up for the shortcomings of Marvelous Pen's departure. So you've taken a fancy to me? Gohan raised his head and looked at Yaoguang, then looked at his watch. Your challenge shouldn't be so soon, right? I don't have time today. I'll tell you in detail next time. I have urgent matters to attend to now. Goodbye. Seeing that Gohan had left the conference room directly, Yaoguang felt very bad. He had only said half of what he wanted to say, and the various benefits and transactions had not been carried out. Was it really good for him to leave just like that? Chapter 221. If there were any management offices in Sword Maiden Online that had the most people, it would definitely be the Sword Catacomb Management Office. Everyone knew that no matter what era it was, the most profitable industry would always be the real estate industry. As Gohan's only home in the game, the Sword Catacomb was just a dilapidated thatched hut. There was only one room in total. It was very cramped to fit Yu Wang's computer table and bed, especially now that Tian had joined Gahan's family. Tian, who could not fit a second bed, could only squeeze into one bed with Yu Wang. In particular, Tian liked to drink. The whole house reeked of alcohol. Every time Yu Wang saw this scene, he would frown. He wanted to chase this tired guy out. After consuming the 3,000 essence sword pills he obtained from the dungeon, he now had 7,500 quarks of essence sword. In addition to the salary that Yao Guang gave him over the past few days, Guhan's essence sword had increased to 8,000 quarks. He was only 2,000 quarks away from the threshold of 10,000 quarks for a famed sword. If he worked hard and cleared a few dungeons with an SSS rank score, he would be able to gather 2,500 quarks of essence sword. At that time, Gahan would inevitably have to coordinate another sword maiden to return to the sword catacomb at the same time. This way, the small thatched hut would definitely be filled with 3 sword maidens. Thus, Gahan decided that he had to go to the sword catacomb management office today to upgrade his sword catacomb. He had to make at least a room with 3 bedrooms and 2 living rooms. As the only management office that had the authority to control the sword catacomb in the game, it was naturally crowded. Even though the management office had opened more than 30 service windows, it was a pity that it was still inadequate. Gahan took a quick look. There were more than 30 windows, and each of them had a queue of at least 50 to 60 meters. There were 400 to 500 people queuing in front of a window at the same time. If Gahan were to queue honestly, he didn't know if he could finish his sword catacomb by tomorrow afternoon. Of course, Gahan didn't have the time to waste here. He had a mission to complete in real life in the afternoon. Looking around, Gahan suddenly discovered that there was no one in front of a window. There wasn't even a single person queuing up. Gahan confirmed that the window was open, and there were NPCs sitting inside. It didn't look like a closed window. Gahan walked to the front of this window. Only then did he know the reason why there was no queue at this window. This was because there was a gilded sign hanging at the entrance of the queue. It said, "Players with less than 10 million in assets are not allowed to enter." Good heavens, the entry standard was 10 million renminbi. No wonder this window was empty. It turned out that this window was specially opened for the rich. Gahan glanced at his personal terminal. At this time, there was already 50 million in his account. It seemed to be more than enough to enter this passage. Thus, Gahan strode forward with his long legs and entered the tunnel. Dear player military governor, welcome to the official Sword Catacomb Management Office of Sword Maiden Online. Welcome to the special Sword Catacomb application window. The programmed NPC attended saw Gahan and took the initiative to greet him. Gahan's research on the game was focused on things related to combat. There was very little research on Sword Catacombs, or rather, he didn't do any research at all. Hearing the NPC mention the special sword catacomb, Gahan was confused. What was a special sword catacomb? Special sword catacombs are rare or unique types of sword catacombs that are different from ordinary sword catacombs. The attendant seemed to have seen through Gahan's doubts and handed a document to Gahan from the windowsill. Dear player military governor, you can take a look at this document. All the special sword catacombs that have been released for sale this week are here. Gahan took the brochure from the NPC attendant and opened it. On the first page, there was a vermilion picture of an antique courtyard with annotations below. Antique courtyard set of the Ming Dynasty's Jiangnan tycoons from the Middle Ages. It has a main hall, 2 kitchens, 3 public toilets, 3 large and small storerooms, 3 independent bedrooms, and a small garden. Finely renovated and has 1 hectare of land. 5 male and female NPCs will come with purchase, including a housekeeper, 2 maids, and 2 servants. The price is 10 million renminbi. 8 of the 10 sets have been sold. There are 2 left. Dear player military governor, this antique courtyard set of the Ming Dynasty's Jiangnan tycoons is very good. The architectural style and the furniture are completely antique. The 5 NPCs that come with it are experts in all kinds of housework. They can provide you and your sword lady with considerate service and ensure that you can enjoy a perfect and comfortable life in the sword catacomb. Most importantly, it comes with a hectare of land. You can build all kinds of buildings on this hectare of land. If you buy it now, we'll even throw in any of the blueprints of the racecourse, central sculpture, and outdoor pool. It's definitely worth it. After the attendant's patient explanation, Gahan quickly understood the difference between the so-called special sword catacombs and ordinary sword catacombs. Ordinary sword catacombs were similar to apartment buildings. Although one could choose from a small room of 50 square meters to a mansion of thousands of square meters, that was all. The space was limited to the inside of the room. After opening the door, one would enter the game world. That was just a simple residence. However, the special mansion was different. Apart from having a variety of architectural styles and designs compared to ordinary sword catacombs, the two most important selling points of the special sword catacombs were the NPC servants and their own land. With NPC servants, players could enjoy the intoxicating life of a tycoon in ancient times. Meanwhile, players could build all kinds of strange vacation buildings on their own land, ranging from the smallest vegetable farm to the best mountain ski resort. Even the entire Pacific Ocean could be built on their own land. As long as you had the money and as long as you could imagine it, you could build all these things on your own land. After reading this, Gahan could not help but sigh. No wonder many tycoons were unwilling to return to the real world. They would rather live in the game and die in the game. It was because the enjoyment of these special buildings was too exaggerated, far beyond the limits of enjoyment in the real world. In the real world, even if one was rich, without the identity of a sword bearer, one would not be able to live in a house that was more than 600 square meters, let alone a racecourse or a swimming pool. This was because in the real world, every base city used an extremely limited amount of land to feed tens of millions of people. This extremely limited land had to be used by the sword bearers who protected the survival of humans. As for the ordinary people who did not have the strength, as long as they did not die, they could continuously produce new people and continue the human civilization. Before Gahan became a sword bearer, did he not live in a honeycomb house that was hundreds of stories high? Before he became a sword bearer, even if one gave Gahan tens of millions or even hundreds of millions, he would not be qualified to live in the core area, nor would he be qualified to enjoy the large space. The law had already stipulated that non-citizens could never live in a house that was more than 600 square meters. Once violated, they would be sent to prison for more than 10 years. Back to the special sword catacombs. These special sword catacombs looked magnificent and extremely tempting, but in comparison, the price to obtain a special sword catacomb was also very high. In this booklet, the cheapest Jiangnan Tycoon-style courtyard started at 10 million renminbi. The more expensive medieval knight glory castle set cost 80 million renminbi. The more expensive complete imitation of Yinjing Prince Mansion set directly raised the price to 1 billion renminbi. Finally, the most expensive one was the 600 years old Yinjing Forbidden City suit, which was worth 50 billion yuan. According to the explanation in the atlas, every grass, every tree, and every building in the Forbidden City Imperial Palace had been meticulously restored to ensure that every detail was exactly the same as the Forbidden City. There were a total of 9,999 rooms in the Forbidden City set, but only 24 of the main rooms were fully replicated. The players had to pay extra to purchase the rest of the rooms. For example, a decoration of the along the river during the Qingming festival would cost 5 million RMB, non-negotiable. In addition, there were 100 eunuchs, 100 palace maids, 200 imperial guards, 10 imperial doctors, 10 imperial chefs, 20 imperial concubines. What made Gahan want to ridicule the most were the 36 civil and military NPCs. Every morning, they would run to the throne room and shout, "Long live the emperor." Then, they would pretend to report to Gahan about all sorts of major events in the world. By the way, this forbidden city also had 10,000 hectares of land. If Gahan was interested, he could move to Yuanminjuan, Summer Palace, Wanshou Palace, Zongnanhai, Huangshan, Taishan, Sanchi Mountain, Yangtze River, Yellow River, etc., as long as he had RMB. The reason why the system set these special sword graves to be so expensive was because of the pressure of collecting RMB. All along, the system had been releasing a huge amount of RMB. If it wasn't for the sword graves industry, the financial system of the game and the real world would have collapsed long ago. Mr. Military Governor, have you chosen? Which one do you want to buy? The service NPC looked at Gahan with a smile, but Gohan could feel that if he dared to say no, he would immediately be kicked out by this NPC. After Gahan left, Queen Yu, who still had her head buried in the blanket, was probably too tired and fell asleep again. When she slowly opened her eyes, she was shocked. The small thatched room had become an exquisitely carved and antique bedroom. Her bed had also changed from an iron bed to a high-grade wooden bed. There was a layer of pink chiffon hanging on both sides of the bed. Do you like it? Queen Yu turned around and saw Gahan looking at her with a smile. Do you like our new home? Gahan didn't want to line up at the normal window and didn't want his sword lady to live in the thatched room anymore. Although he still felt that it was a bit expensive, he still decided to spend 10 million to buy this sword grave. TSK. The current Gohan couldn't be compared to when he only had 9 million on him at the auction and had a scheme against the pitiful Hui Jian to get the heavenly sword's keepsake. Now that he had over 50 million, he casually threw out 10 million without batting an eyelid. Chapter 222. Dear friend, are you going out? In a room that was almost identical in layout and decoration to Gohan's new home, the tall cast cloud iron was holding the inside of an electric cooker, constantly shoving rice into his mouth with the big spoon in the cooker. At this moment, cast cloud iron was talking to his sword wielder, Song Hama. Yeah, I'm going out for a while. Song Hama tightened his shoelaces. At this time, he was wearing a formal black suit, which was very rare for him. His hair was also neatly combed. His temperament instantly became a little low, as if he was going to attend a very formal and grand occasion. Take me with you. Cast Cloud Iron put down a large pot of rice, wiped his hands on his clothes, and prepared to go out with Song Hama. Wait, Song Hama laughed bitterly. Cast Cloud Iron, I can't go out with you today. Can you stay at home alone, or go out for a walk? Why? Why can't Cast Cloud Iron be with his close friend? When Cast Cloud Iron heard that Song Hama wouldn't let him go out with him, he immediately became unhappy. Dear friend, you can't possibly have met another girl, right? Cast Cloud Iron muttered very loudly. Yes, there was no mistaking her words or her logic. She was just muttering loudly. While she was muttering, in her mind, she had already started to imagine Song Hama meeting with girls or boys behind her back. Then they would drink and chat together, talking about poetry and philosophy of life. My God, Cast Cloud Iron, what the hell are you thinking? Song Hama laughed even more bitterly. Forget it. To tell you the truth, I'm going to meet my bad friend Gahan today, so I can't bring you along. Oh, you want to meet Gahan? Cast Cloud Iron's tone was light. It was obvious that she did not believe Song Hama's words. Gahan and Cast Cloud Iron are also friends. Since you want to meet Gahan, then Cast Cloud Iron will go with you. Cast Cloud Iron has not seen Gahan for a long time. Cast Cloud Iron also wants to see your friend. All right, stop messing around. I really can't bring you. Song Hama's intention to refuse was very firm. All right, I understand. Cast Cloud Iron hammered the table so hard that the entire table jumped up, scaring the personal maid who was preparing to clean up the rice cooker for Cast Cloud Iron. You didn't even go out with Gohan, did you? You were with another girl, a boy, right? I really am. Song Hama was speechless. To have a sword lady like Cast Cloud Iron, Song Hama regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. All right, I'll tell you. Today is the death anniversary of Gohan's parents and sister. Gohan doesn't want too many people to disturb him. Do you understand? From the time Gohan and I got to know each other until today, Gohan would never allow anyone to go with him to worship his parents and sister. Even if it was my mother, father, brother, or sister, Gohan would never allow them to go. Do you understand? I made an agreement with Gohan that in this lifetime, only the two of us brothers will visit the graves of Uncle and Auntie. We will never bring anyone else. Song Hama was like a machine gun. She spat out these words in anger. Word by word, She sprayed Cast Cloud Iron's face. Cast Cloud Iron, who was more than 2 meters tall and nearly 3 meters tall, was stupefied. Oh, Cast Cloud Iron was like a little lowly who had been wronged. She whispered, coyly and aggrievedly said, I don't know. All right, you go. Come back quickly. I'll wait for you to come home for dinner. AI. Song homicide and walked in front of the Cast Cloud Iron. After waiting for a while, seeing that the Cast Cloud Iron still had no reaction, she helplessly glared at the Cast Cloud Iron. What are you standing there for? Carry me. Oh. Cast Cloud Iron picked up Song Hama. It looked like a mother carrying her own child. Don't worry and wait for me at home. I'll be back soon. Song Hama hugged Cast Cloud Iron hard. It couldn't be helped. If it didn't let Cast Cloud Iron pick him up, Song Hama wouldn't be able to touch Cast Cloud Iron's broad chest. A few minutes later, Song Hama went downstairs and left the house. Cast Cloud Iron looked at her reluctantly, and then grabbed her rice pot from the exclusive maid who was cleaning the table. What are you cleaning up for? I haven't eaten enough yet. When Song Hama arrived at the appointed place with Gahan, she was surprised to find that Gahan was not here. This was an incredible thing. In the past, when she went to visit Gahan's parents, Gahan would wait at the appointed place early, at least 20 minutes in advance. But today, with less than 5 minutes left, Gahan still didn't appear. Until there was only 1 minute left, Gahan finally arrived late. Song Hama wanted to ask why Gahan, who had always been early, was so late, but thinking that this was the day to worship Gahan's parents, it seemed inappropriate to ask such a question. After thinking about it, she didn't ask this question. However, Gahan seemed to see Song Hama's doubts. He lifted his hand into his child's pouch and pulled out Qingpin, who was wearing a plain white gauze dress with a silly smile. It's all because of this guy. She insisted on coming with me. I was in a stalemate with her for a while, which delayed the time. Hearing Gahan's explanation, Song Hama's mouth unconsciously twitched a few times. Damn it, I spent a lot of effort to appease the one at home, making her give up the idea of coming out with me to attend Gahan's tomb sweeping ceremony. On the other hand, Gahan actually failed to stop Qingpin from tormenting him and brought her out. Didn't we agree to sweep graves together for the rest of our lives? Although he felt helpless in his heart, after all, they were Gahan's parents. If they wanted to bring someone over, that was their business. What did it have to do with him? Sigh. Next time, how about I bring the Cast Cloud Iron over as well? Song Hama thought to herself. Don't think about bringing Cloud Cast Iron next time. Gahan's sudden words startled Song Hama. Qingpin is like my younger sister. She's my family member, different from your Cloud Cast Iron. TSK, look at how arrogant you are. You sour popsicle. Even if you want it, I'm not willing to bring her over. Song Hama was speechless and could only retort helplessly. According to the rules of the council, after a human's death, the corpse couldn't stay in the city for even a moment. It had to be cremated immediately to prevent the crowd from crowding and causing a terrifying plague in the high-density city. After the corpse was cremated, the ashes could only be placed in the only peaceful residence hall in the city. No other places were allowed. In addition, the ashes could only be stored in the peaceful residence hall for 20 years at most. After 20 years, the council would find an empty space outside the city and scatter the ashes. They would then plant trees and cover the ashes with soil, allowing the human's body to completely return to nature. Of course, this rule didn't apply to sword bearers. If you became a sword bearer, you could place the ashes in the peaceful residence hall for as long as you wanted until there were no more sword bearers among you or your descendants. If your level is a bit higher, reaching Spirit Sword or above, then your ancestors' ashes don't need to be placed in the peaceful residence hall. You could directly bring them home to worship. The privileges of a sword wielder are clearly displayed here. However, the Chinese paid particular attention to burial, so most sword bearers wouldn't use this privilege. Instead, they would choose to scatter the ashes of their parents and ancestors under the trees like other ordinary people, returning them to this world. Hello, do you have an appointment? In the hall of the peaceful residence hall, an attendant asked with a smile. Because there were too many ashes stored in the peaceful residence hall, there was an endless stream of juniors who wanted to worship. There were too many people, and in the first few years, there was a very bad incident where the waiting time was too long. Therefore, the council issued a rule that every descendant was only allowed to worship their ancestors' ashes once a year, and they had to make an appointment in advance. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to enter the peaceful residence hall. Gahan didn't say anything. He just took out his personal terminal and scanned the scanner on the counter. He heard a ding sound from the scanner. "Respected sword-bearer, please proceed to the exclusive sacrifice room 145 to carry out the sacrifice." This was still the privilege of the sword-bearer. Without an appointment, they could worship their ancestors at any time. Seeing that Gahan was a sword-bearer, the attendant's attitude became even more respectful. She lowered her head, bent over, and reached out a hand to lead Gahan to the exclusive sacrifice room 145. This exclusive sacrificial room sounded very awesome. It seemed to be very big, but in fact, it was only a small room that was less than 5 square meters. Guhan and Songhama felt a little crowded inside. The layout of the exclusive sacrifice room was also very simple. There was a metal offering table with a small bronze cauldron on top of it. The table was close to a metal wall, and on the wall directly above the metal offering table, there was a small window that was dozens of centimeters square, just like the notch on the wall of a traditional farmer's courtyard where the kitchen god was placed. Ding! Respected sword-bearer, please place your personal terminal in front of the scanner to scan once. The computer voice in the sacrifice room spoke slowly. Different from the computer voice in other places, the computer voice here had a soft, slow, and sorrowful special effect. It was specially set to match the atmosphere of the sacrifice room. Gohan scanned his personal terminal and heard a series of mechanical movements. After dozens of seconds, a small rectangular box was carried into the opening on the wall by a tray. This box was very familiar to Gahan. It was his father's urn. When Gahan took the box down from the window and respectfully placed it on the offering table, his mother's and sister's urns were also transported to Gahan. This was the future high-precision sacrificial management system. The interior of the safe residence hall was like an enormous warehouse, and the cinerary urns were the goods in the warehouse. The sacrificers didn't need to search for their loved ones one by one like before the apocalypse. All they had to do was wait in the sacrificial room on the first floor, and the system would automatically deliver the cinerary urns to the sacrificers. It was unknown whether this was good or bad, but it was certain that this was a change that humans had no choice but to make after almost all of their homes were destroyed and occupied. Chapter 223. Gohan solemnly took out 3 memorial tablets from his dimensional pocket. They were written with the words Xinkao Gu Chinxiu Fu Jun, Xinkao Gu Yue Old Madam of the Leaf Family, and Xinkao Gu Yun Virgin Girl. Gohan knelt on the ground and walked to the sacrificial table. He placed the 3 memorial tablets neatly on it, and then took out a variety of seasonal fruits, rice, pork, delicacies, fish, and other offerings that Gahan could get. Finally, he solemnly took out a plate of steaming hot dishes from his dimensional pocket. Among the golden potatoes, there were pieces of tender and attractive shredded meat. This was a plate of sour and spicy shredded potatoes that Maiden had just fried. After finishing all this, Gahan came back on his knees and grabbed the soft flesh on the neck of Qingpin, who was sleeping with her eyes closed in the nursery bag. He lifted her out of the bag and placed her on a cushion beside him. "Kneel down," Gohan ordered in a low voice, causing Qingpin to tremble and wake up from her daze. She opened her eyes in a daze and saw Gahan's sad and painful face, like a small sapling that had lost all its green leaves in June and was covered with scars. "Gahan, what's wrong with you?" Qingpin suddenly felt very painful in her heart, as if she had lost the most important thing. "Gahan, don't be like this." Gahan smiled. Qingpin stood up and wanted to jump into Gahan's arms to find some warmth, but Gohan pulled her away without hesitation, pressed her shoulders, and made her kneel on the ground again. "Kneel down and kowtow." Gohan's voice was choked with sobs. "Gahan, you're crying. Why are you crying?" Qingpin actually saw tears rolling in Gahan's eyes, and drops of tears the size of beans fell from her eyes. The heartache he felt just now was getting stronger and more painful. It was as if he had lost Gahan. Gahan, don't cry. Qingpin wants to cry too. Gahan, don't cry. Qingpin is in pain. Qingpin doesn't want you to cry. Qingpin broke free from Gahan's grasp and threw himself in front of Gahan, who was kneeling on the ground. He raised his head and stared at Gahan's tear-stained face. Kneel! Gahan grabbed Qingpin's neck and forced her to kneel on the ground again. But just as he loosened his grip, Qingpin forced himself to stand up and threw himself into Gahan's arms. A pair of small hands rubbed Gahan's face randomly, and Gahan's tears were smeared all over his face. No, Qingpin doesn't want to see Gahan cry. Qingpin doesn't want Gahan to cry. Qingpin doesn't want Gahan to cry. Qingpin's words suddenly poked the tears in Gahan's heart. He thought of the last moment of his life and the words his mother said to him. Mother, mother, father, sister, Gahan misses all of you. Gahan misses all of you. Gahan really misses all of you. Come out and see Gahan. Gahan really misses all of you. At that moment, Gahan broke down. He was like a helpless baby. His entire body slumped to the ground. He slapped the ground and wailed. The entire level seemed to be able to hear his loud and shocking cries. At that moment, Gahan was no longer the glorious, decisive, famous, invincible newbie, leader of the new generation, who defeated Kanglin Billows and completed the Emperor's Sword Grade quest. He was no longer the newbie swordsman who relied on the 9 swords of mysterious heaven to defeat Rat, Tiger, Ghost, and Spirit level 4 Yuan Ko. He was just a pitiful child who missed his parents and sister so much that he was going crazy. Gahan, Gahan, don't cry. You. 2 drops of tears suddenly rolled down Qingpin's cheeks. The swordsman and his sword lady were connected. Their emotions were connected and affected each other. The great sorrow in Gahan's heart passed through the sword mark and was deeply transmitted into Qingpin's heart. It caused the usually cute and invincible guy to tear up. Sigh, Qingpin, just be quiet for a while. Let Gahan cry here alone. Song Hama, who had been watching from the side, let out a long sigh. He carried Qingpin to his side. It's been 12 years. Every year, he cries like this. Perhaps this is the only way to relieve the pain and sorrow that Gahan has accumulated over the past year. Qingpin, these tablets erected here are your family. They are as close to you as Gahan. Kneel down and kowtow to them. Consider it your filial piety. Song Hama said to Qingpin. Qingpin nodded, not fully understanding. But if Qingpin kowtows, something bad will happen. What could be bad? Even if it's bad, it can't be worse than Gahan's current state. Song Hama let out another long sigh. He ignored Qingpin and also knelt down respectfully. He kowtowed to the tablets of Gahan's parents. Gahan's mother, Gahan's father, Gahan's little sister. When I was a child, my family was poor. You helped me grow up. If you have Gahan to eat, you won't be stingy with me. You are my parents. Gahan is my biological brother. I, Song Hama, swear that I will accompany Gahan, take care of his life, and help him get through all the hardships in life. We will be good brothers and good gay friend for life. Please rest assured in heaven. I, Song Hama, will do what I say. Song Hama kowtowed to the tablets of the 3 people with sincerity. When Song Hama was a child, he had some problems and his family situation was very bad. He relied on the help of his neighbors, Gahan's family. Otherwise, he would have been sent to an orphanage and become a motherless child. Therefore, the relationship between Song Hama and Gahan was very good. His relationship with Gahan's parents was also very good. He was like a younger brother of Gahan. On the other side, when Qingpin saw Gahan and Song Hama kneeling on the ground, he rolled his eyes. He felt that it was not good for him to do this. Coupled with the endless sorrow in Gahan's heart, Qingpin finally took the initiative to kneel before the tablets of Gahan's parents. After hesitating for a long time, he finally kowtowed to the tablets of the 3 people. The moment Qingpin's head touched the ground, he heard a loud roar. Then a huge fire exploded from the altar. The power was so great that the whole house began to shake. Mother! The sudden explosion awakened Gahan from endless sorrow. He stood up abruptly and was stunned. The whole sacrificial room, which was connected to 3 or 4 other sacrificial rooms nearby, had been burnt by the explosion. Huge smoke and dust filled the sky. The automatic fire extinguishing system on the roof also sensed the appearance of the fire and began to spray water mist to extinguish the fire. What's going on? What happened? The staff of Unju Hall rushed in immediately and saw the sacrificial room where Gahan was in a mess. Strange. How could there be an explosion? The staff scratched his head in bewilderment. Also, what is this dust all over the sky? They did not notice that the 3 urns that were originally placed on the table had all disappeared, or rather, they had all exploded, leaving only a pile of wood fragments here. Mother! Gahan, who noticed all this, felt his vision go black, and he fell down. Gahan, are you okay? Guhan slowly opened his eyes and found himself in a place that looked like an office. Song Hama was sitting beside him, and Chingpu was curled up into a ball on the sofa. He was unusually quiet. You're awake. A strange man walked to Gahan and patted him on the shoulder. Since you're awake, come and deal with the problem with me. The person who spoke was a policeman near Unju Hall. It was not a small incident to burn down 4 sacrificial rooms of Unju Hall. So the policeman invited the unconscious Gahan, Song Hama, and the others to the police station to deal with these thorny problems. After waking up, Gohan seemed to have completely recovered his calmness. He followed the policeman to the opposite side of the desk and began to be questioned by the policeman. Do you know how the fire started? The police officer asked straightforwardly. I don't know. Gohan shook his head. Then did you bring any flammable or explosive items here, such as firecrackers, yellow paper, candles, and so on? No. Gohan acted very stupefied. Sigh. That's strange. The police officer nodded and shook his head in distress. Then, he pushed a video in front of Guhan. Guhan took a look and saw that it was the entire video recorded by the cameras nearby when he was worshipping. At first, the video was very normal. 3 urns were sent out. Then Gahan placed the offerings. Then he cried and fell in front of the sacrificial table. Song Hama also kowtowed. Finally, when Qing Pin also kowtowed, the accident happened instantly. The second after Qing Pin kowtowed, the 3 urns exploded from the inside at the same time, covering all 4 sacrificial rooms nearby. After that, the ashes of the explosion scattered all over the sky. Even the camera became blurred. After watching the video, Gahan took a few steps back and almost fell to the ground. Seeing his parents' urns explode with his own eyes, no one could accept such a terrible ending. Mister, please restrain your grief and take care of yourself. Don't worry, we will definitely find out the ins and outs of the matter. The policeman saw Gahan's heartbroken look and couldn't help but say with concern, Thank you. Gahan nodded with difficulty. Can I go now? Of course, the rest is up to us, the police. But if there is anything we need to assist in the investigation, please cooperate with the police. The policeman gestured for Gahan to leave. Although Gahan himself was suspected of committing a crime, the possibility was too low. And in this era, it was very easy for the police to find you. There was no need to worry about Gahan absconding. Where could you run to? Did you have the ability to leave the safety of Yuzhong City? A few minutes later, Gahan and Song Hama left the police station, followed by Qing Pin, who was walking silently. Hama, you go back first. I want to find a place to be alone. Gahan first said this to Song Hama. Song Hama expressed his understanding and told Gahan to look on the bright side and not be sad. Tomorrow, he still had to go out of the city for practical training. After that, he left Gahan. After watching Song Hama leave, Guhan strode in one direction, completely ignoring Qing Pin, who was following him. Gahan, wait for me. Qing Pin shouted and followed behind Gahan. Chapter 224. Guhan silently walked into the park alone. This was a small park that was not big, probably not even 3,000 square meters in area. Under a few rows of green trees, there was a crooked man-made stream flowing through. On the side of the stream, there were more than 10 benches for pedestrians to rest. In this base city, which was made up of reinforced concrete and had an explosive population. Parks were a rare resource. All the space had to be vacated to build honeycomb buildings for human habitation. Only a little bit of land was used to build luxurious things like parks. In a non-core area of Yuzhong City, there were only 5 such small parks and a larger central park. This was considered good. In Yanjing Bay City, which had a population of more than 30 million, all the small parks had been completely flattened and built into skyscrapers, except for the central park. It was said that the tallest honeycomb building in Yanjing had exceeded 2,000 meters and had a record of 4,000 households and 30,000 people living in it. This was because the park's resources were so precious. In the past, the park was always overcrowded. Unless one deliberately waited for a few hours, it was impossible to have a chance to sit on the dozens of benches. However, at this time, half of the benches were empty. The rest were almost all elderly people and mothers with children. There was not a single young person in sight. This was a very strange and unscientific thing. "Hubby, let's rest here for a while, okay? It's rare that there's an empty spot here." A couple hurriedly walked past Gahan. When the wife saw the empty bench, she quickly grabbed her husband's hand, wanting to stop and look at the rare green. "What are you looking at?" "My brothers are waiting for us. In 17 minutes, the dungeon will officially open. We'll come to this kind of place every day. Today, it's more important to go and clear the dungeon. I read the military governor's strategy yesterday. I can't take it anymore. I want to fly to the sky on a nuclear bomb. This is what a man should do." When the husband talked about the nuclear bomb, his face turned red with excitement. Obviously, the nuclear bomb was something that men could not resist. The wife's face was full of helplessness. She did not understand why her husband was so passionate about the nuclear bomb and the new dungeon, but she obviously could not stop her husband's desire to go home. She heard that Merlin in the game was a rare handsome man. She had also made an appointment with her sisters to see how handsome Merlin was. From the couple's behavior, it was more or less clear why there were so few young people in this previously bustling park. After 24 hours, the new dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal, was about to be officially opened. Everyone could not wait to experience the new dungeon. The couple would never have imagined that the military governor, who had caused such a stir, was walking past them like a zombie. Behind Gahan was a cute Qingpin who was trying hard to follow Gahan with his short legs. It was probably because Gahan was tired. Seeing an empty seat, Gahan directly sat on it. Qingpin followed closely behind Gahan and jumped onto the seat. "Gahan, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you talking to Qingpin?" Qingpin's legs are sore from walking. Qingpin wants Gahan to hug Qingpin. Qingpin stood on Gahan's thigh and rubbed Gahan's face, trying to get a response from Gahan. However, Gahan did not respond to Qingpin at all. This was very normal. After seeing the ashes of their loved ones explode, no one would be able to accept this fact. Gahan was able to not cry and jump like a madman. He did not shout or scream. He only did not say a single word. He was already very calm. However, it was strange that Gahan could cry so sadly when he was worshipping his parents. However, now that there were no bones left, Gahan did not shed a single tear. This was also a very strange thing. In fact, this involved very complicated psychological activities and changes. When the urn exploded in front of Gahan and the ashes flew all over the sky, Gahan's sadness and despair could not be controlled at all. In other words, Gahan's brain center could not withstand this burst of emotions. Therefore, Gahan fainted immediately. However, when he fainted, Gahan was not really in a state of lethargy. On the contrary, his thoughts were particularly active. In this dreamlike environment, Gahan cried helplessly for a long time. In the midst of his long sobbing, 3 warm voices suddenly woke Gahan up. He raised his head and saw his parents and sister standing in front of him, smiling warmly at him. "Father, mother, your son is unfilial. Not only did your son not avenge you, your son also harmed you. Gahan couldn't continue. He knelt in front of his parents and kowtowed with all his might, begging for relief from the guilt in his heart. "Henin, there is no need. We have seen what you have done for so many years. You have suffered." His mother, Li Ryue, took Gahan into her arms and gently stroked Gahan's head like a baby. Once again returning to his mother's arms, Gahan quickly calmed down. His heart, which had been like a storm, gradually calmed down. Our biggest wish is that you can find a considerate wife and live a peaceful life for the rest of your life. However, my Hanin is so ambitious. He wants to be the savior of mankind. As a mother, I am really happy. I am proud to have such a son, his mother said softly. Mother, do you also know my dream? Mother, believe me, I will kill all the Transformers and use their fire seeds as a sacrifice to your souls in heaven. Gohan gnashed his teeth. Yuan Ko, who had broken into the shelter and slaughtered the entire shelter, were the Yuan Ko Transformers from the movie Alliance. Gohan had vowed countless times that he would kill the entire Transformers group and the Yuan Ko of the movie Alliance, leaving no one alive. Henin, if you say that, it will be difficult for us to leave here happily. Li Ryue's face was full of worry. This is the fate of us humans. As long as you live happily, it is better than anything else. Don't do something stupid. No, if your departure is fate, then this child's battle is also fate. Either I die on this land, or I kill them all. Apart from this, there is no other way. Gohan said through clenched teeth. Henin, we don't want you to do this. Li Ryue still wanted to persuade Gohan, but she was stopped by a hand. Well, this is the path that the child has chosen. Let's not interfere with him. If he wants to avenge us, let him go. Only in this way can Gohan's heart really be happy. The one who spoke was Gohan's father, Gu Chunxiu, a slightly chubby man who looked gentle. Dad! Dad! Gohan threw himself at Gu Chunxiu's feet and kowtowed a dozen times. Dad, if I don't kill all these Yuan Ko, I will not be happy for the rest of my life. Dad, forgive me for being unfilial. This hatred is the only pillar that has supported me to live until now. Without this hatred, I will definitely not be able to live. Is that so? Gu Chunxiu smiled and shook his head. He lovingly touched Gohan's forehead. But we found that in your heart, a new pillar has grown. Look at the ground under your feet. Gohan lowered his head and saw that on the originally pitch-black ground, there was suddenly 3 emerald green shoots that broke out of the ground. Then they began to grow rapidly. One of them grew to knee height and stopped growing. It was like a tender seedling that could be broken at any time. The other one grew to waist height. The trunk was also as thick as a finger. There were even 3 or 4 leaves extending from both sides of the trunk. This was already close to the standard of a sapling. The last one grew the longest. It had already surpassed Gohan's height. On a few scattered branches, dozens of leaves were swaying in the wind. Wow, so beautiful. Big brother, so beautiful. Gu Yun, who had been hiding behind her parents, jumped out excitedly when she saw the 3 saplings. She waved her hands excitedly around the 3 green plants in the dark. Little Yun, Gohan suddenly hugged Gu Yun into his arms. Then he desperately hugged her tender body into his body. It was as if he wanted to fuse little Yun into his body. Little Yun, big brother miss you so much. Little Yun, big brother has hot and sour shredded potatoes for you to eat every day. Stay and accompany big brother. Okay? Okay? Don't. Big brother is so lecherous. Big brother is so bad, so bad. Guyan playfully struggled in Gohan's embrace. This beautiful and warm scene made Li Ryue and her husband smile in satisfaction as they looked at Gu Chunxiu. Gohan, look at these 3 saplings. Although they are still very young, one day they will grow into towering trees. They will be deeply planted in your body and become the pillars for you to live in this world. Gu Chunxiu patted Gohan's shoulder. Even without us, you can still rely on them to survive. In the future, there will be more trees planted here. There will be more pillars to support your body and let you live with an indomitable spirit. Do you understand? I understand. Although Gohan was unwilling, he still nodded. He already understood what these 3 saplings meant. Indeed, the current him was no longer the same Gohan who relied on the hatred of his parents to mercilessly kill Kinzu in the first chapter. If he could go back to the first day he entered the game, Guhan wondered if he would stab with his sword without hesitation. Father. Guhan suddenly remembered something. He hugged Gu Yun and knelt on the ground again in front of Gu Chunxiu. Father, I have a request. What is it? Gu Chunxiu was stunned. This was the first time Guhan had asked him for a favor. I only ask that you don't blame Qingpin. Everything that happened today is on me. Please don't be angry at Qingpin, please. With Guhan's intelligence, with just a little thought, he knew that 90% of the blame for the explosion of the ashes today was on poor Qing. This. Chapter 225. Guhan, don't worry, we are not unreasonable people. Although this matter was indeed caused by your sword maiden, Qingpin. Gu Chunxiu paused. In fact, the three of us still have to thank her. If it wasn't for her, I'm afraid we would not be able to free ourselves for the rest of our lives. Free? Guhan raised his head in confusion. He did not understand why his parents could not be freed. Guhan, do you know? For the past 12 years, the hatred in your heart was too strong. It was so strong that it bound our souls to your side, making it impossible for us to free ourselves and leave this world to go to the pure land of ultimate bliss. Gu Chunxiu sighed. For the past 12 years, we have been bound to your side. Although we can see you grow step by step, we have also seen all the suffering you've gone through. As your father, I feel very pained to see you mistreat yourself like this. Father, Guhan did not expect his hatred to be so strong. It was actually strong enough to keep his parents' souls by his side. However, Guhan was a little happy. If he continued to maintain his hatred, would his parents be able to stay by his side forever? Don't think about those stupid ideas. Haven't you harmed us enough? Gu Chunxiu patted Guhan's head. These 12 years have been like being in prison. Your mother and I have had enough. This time, thanks to your sword maiden, we have broken the urn that bound us. From now on, we can free ourselves from this kind of life that is neither human nor ghost. We can go to another world that belongs to us. Father, don't go. Guhan hurriedly pulled on Gu Chunxiu's sleeve. Don't go. Stay by Guhan's side, okay? Don't go, okay? It's useless, child. Just like how your hatred binds us, your sword maiden helps us free ourselves. All of this is fated. We can't force it. Child, we don't have much time left. We are about to leave this place. To be able to see you one last time in your dream and talk to you so much, your mother, your sister, and I are already very satisfied. This is the best ending. Yes, Father. Guhan lowered his head. He already understood his parents' intentions. He had no right to keep his parents by his side. They were already dead, and it was time for them to go to the world they belonged to. Letting their parents go where they want to go was what a filial child should do. It's almost time. Child, there are a few last things that I have to tell you. Gu Chunxiu's expression was a little more urgent. Child, I believe that you have experienced these past few days. Our Gu family's bloodline is not to be underestimated. You must make good use of your bloodline and not be like our ancestors. Otherwise, it will be another disaster. Gu Chunxiu said. Hearing his father talk about bloodlines, Guhan hurriedly stood up. Father, what is the origin of our Gu family's bloodline? Why can't I find a single clue even after 12 years of investigation? Father, do you know this secret? Gu Chunxiu shook his head. Our ancestors taught us that if our descendants do not become sword-bearers, then they will be able to pass on this secret before they die. If our descendants become unfilial and become sword-bearers, then this secret will be buried forever. At least, I will not be able to tell you. But Father, I am very confused about my own situation right now. When I was practicing the 3 green lotus blades, there were all kinds of problems. If I knew the origin of my bloodline, then maybe these problems would be solved. Father, please tell me. Child, if you are so curious, then go find the answer yourself. Gu Chunxiu was halfway through his sentence when his face suddenly froze. Not good. Time is up. We have to go. Child, goodbye. Li Riyue could not help but wipe away her tears. She kissed Guhan on the cheek and took Gu Yun from Guhan's arms. Child, other fathers cannot help you. If it is a problem with the 3 green lotus blades, then go find the green lotus sword fairy. Only he can help you. Remember, only he can help you. Leaving behind this last sentence, Gu Chuanxiu, Li Ruyue, and Gu Yun's voices were like clouds, instantly disappearing. Don't go, don't go. Just like what was described in the previous chapter, Gahan shouted these words and woke up from his sleep. Only then did Gahan realize that he had been in an unbelievable dream. After he communicated with the police with reason, he had been separated from Song Hama for a long period of time, walking to the park, and finally sitting on the bench. All of this had been controlled by Gahan's subconscious. Gahan's main consciousness had been immersed in the memories and thoughts of the dream. Logically speaking, dreams were not real. They were just projections of one's subconscious in one's mind. This was a very reasonable explanation. Gahan's longing for his parents had not stopped for the past 12 years. And after experiencing the explosion of the urn, which had caused one to collapse, it was very reasonable for Gahan to dream of his parents while he was unconscious. And the words his parents had said to him could also be understood as Gahan's own thoughts. He was just using his parents to tell him and comfort him. This kind of explanation was in line with scientific reasoning. It was impeccable and could not be refuted or doubted. But Gahan's consciousness told him that this was not the case. The parents that appeared in his dream were not illusions, but real. They were the souls of his parents. Gahan could clearly remember every expression and tone of his parents when they spoke to him. This was not something that could be imagined by his own imagination. More importantly, his father had told him at the end that if he wanted to learn the 3 green lotus swords, he had to find the green lotus sword fairy. But in his memory, the green lotus sword fairy had never appeared. Perhaps Gahan would forget those below the fairy sword fairy level, but Gahan dared to swear that all of their names were hidden in his heart. He did not forget any of them. However, there was no such person as the green lotus sword fairy in Gahan's memory. Gahan was 100% sure of this. Since the green lotus sword fairy did not exist in his memory, it meant that his father, who had taken the initiative to mention the name of the green lotus sword fairy, could not have been a character created by his subconscious. This was because the name did not exist in his subconscious at all. If that was the case, then his father must have really come to his dream. In fact, it was very simple to find out whether his parents' souls had really come or the result of his subconscious. He just needed to find the green lotus sword fairy. After finding the green lotus sword fairy, he would ask him about the 3 green lotus swords. Just by looking at the names of the green lotus sword fairy and the 3 green lotus swords, one could tell that there was a deep connection between the two. Next, Gahan hypothesized that if his father was not created by his subconscious and was real, then the other things that his father had said to him were also true. Then, was his hatred really so terrifying that it could control the souls of his father, mother, and sister and prevent them from transcending? Was his hatred so terrifying that it could control the souls of his father, mother, and sister and prevent them from transcending? Gahan recalled his life for the past 12 years and could not help but smile bitterly. This was the truth. If his hatred was poured out, the entire Yuzhong city would not be able to contain it. Also, the transcendence that his father had mentioned, the other world. Could it be that after humans died, they would really go to hell and heaven? In Yuankou, there was no lack of Yama King, Satan, and other legendary figures in charge of hell. However, they were just descriptions from the 2D world. They couldn't really prove the existence of hell and heaven. However, many Jindi had revealed to the world before they died that they would feel the call of a mysterious place before they died. They could be 100% sure that when they died, they would be summoned to that place. As for whether it was heaven, hell, or another battlefield, that was a secret that no one knew. Finally, what puzzled Gahan was Qingping's question. After watching the live video, Gahan was almost 100% sure that the culprit of all this was the adorable Qingping. It was because of her kowtow that caused the ashes of his parents and sister to explode instantly. Although his parents told him not to blame Qingping, and Qingping had helped his parents to free themselves from the shackles of Gahan's hatred, when Gahan thought of his parents' ashes flying in the sky, he could not help but feel distressed. Gahan did not blame Qingping, because Qingpin's kowtow was completely forced by him. It was not something she was willing to do. But Gahan was very puzzled. Why could Qingpin's small kowtow cause such a terrible result? There was no physical contact at all, and Qingpin did not use any sword essence either. The ashes just exploded like a mouse seeing a cat. Just a kowtow from Qingpin made it explode uncontrollably. Gahan could not help but think of the battle a week ago. He thought of the little demonic beast that lost its ability to fly after being touched by Qingpin. Forget it. I will properly test Qingpin's ability when I get home. Qingpin's origin has always been so mysterious. I'm afraid there are too many things hidden in it. Thinking of this, Guhan slowly awoke from his deep thoughts. His face that was as stiff as a corpse gradually regained its vitality. Qingpin, let's go home. Guhan stood up and shouted, but then he frowned. Where's Qingpin? Guhan walked around the entire park, and Qingpin's figure completely disappeared. This was a big problem. Chapter 2:26. Although Qingpin was missing, Gahan was not in a hurry. This was because the author did not intend to use Qingpin's disappearance to create a dozen chapters. Oh no, it was because there was a sword mark connection between Qingpin and Gahan. With this telepathic connection, Gahan could sense it and easily find his own sword lady. If not, he could directly control the sword mark to make Qingpin return. As long as Gahan waved his hand, Qingpin would turn into a sword and automatically fly back to Gahan's hand. However, Gahan did not intend to use this labor-saving method. He intended to work harder and personally find Qingpin. Gahan was very curious about the reason for Qingpin's disappearance. Following the connection between him and Qingpin, Gahan found that Qingpin was still in a state of movement, and the speed of movement was not slow. As time went by, Gahan walked closer and closer to the edge of the city. This was very strange. Why would Qingpin inexplicably approach the edge of the city? After walking for about 20 minutes, Gahan had arrived under the city wall of Yuzhong City. Yes, Yuzhong City was clearly 1,000 years in the future, but it was like 1,000 years in the feudal era, with towering city walls. This city wall was about 100 meters high and more than 10 meters thick. It was completely made of reinforced concrete. Even if a cannon was used to blast a corner of this city wall, it would be difficult to destroy it. Generally speaking, ordinary reinforced concrete could defend against human attacks, but it could not defend against Yuanko's attack. Yuanko could easily use their bodies between the dimensional gaps to pass through any human defensive building. Even if you built a city wall that was thousands of meters high and hundreds of meters thick, it would still be of no use. However, it would be different if dimensional crystals were added to the city wall. After mixing a certain proportion of dimensional crystal powder into the cement, the situation would be different. This proportion was not high, and a ratio of about 0.13% would be sufficient. After mixing dimensional crystal powder, the wall would have the ability to seal the dimensional cracks, and Yuanko would no longer be able to pass through the wall. They would have to use their own strength, like ordinary humans, to destroy the defense of these city walls. However, for a long time, the task of defending against Yuanko was handed over to the dimensional barrier outside the city wall. These city walls would not be able to defend for long after the barrier was broken. They were more used to delay time and prevent humans from escaping from the city. Every year, many humans could not endure the restrictions of life in the base city and try to enter the outside world. However, they would be blocked by this formidable wall, and they would be arrested by the police and sent to prison. After being sent to prison, these people would be satisfied if they wanted to escape from the base city. They would be sent by the police to a collective farm outside the city to undergo labor reform. After being sentenced to a few years, they would work in a collective farm for a few years. If they encountered Yuanko invading the farm and causing their deaths, then sorry to say that they were unlucky. In any case, they would also end up like this when they escaped from the base city. When Gahan arrived at the bottom of the city wall, he saw many police officers patrolling around the city wall. These police officers were looking at Gahan with vigilant eyes. If Gahan wanted to do anything to cross the city wall, he would be arrested on the spot by these police officers. Unfortunately, Gahan did not intend to contribute to human agriculture. According to Gahan's senses, Qingpin should not be far from him, or rather, it should be within a kilometer of him. I found her. That little girl is over there. All of you follow me. Suddenly, a police officer who looked like the captain shouted. 5 or 6 police officers near Gahan collectively followed the captain. When Gahan heard that it was a little girl, he was 80% sure that it should be his Qingpin. Therefore, Gahan trotted behind the police officers and ran into a small alley by the city wall. At this time, the alley had been blocked. In addition to more than a dozen police officers surrounding the alley, there were also dozens of onlookers craning their necks to look inside. Gahan blended into the crowd of onlookers and looked into the alley. Sure enough, his own Qingpin was blocked inside. At this time, Qingpin was standing with her hands on her waist. Her small body was casually facing the encirclement of more than a dozen police officers. Gahan also noticed that behind Qingpin, there was a little girl who was even smaller than Qingpin. Her head was down, and she had fainted behind Qingpin. This little girl's body was covered with all kinds of bruises, and there were bloody scars. At first glance, it was obvious that she had been extremely abused and beaten. Little girl, hurry up and surrender. Otherwise, the police uncle will arrest you and send you to the police station. The police officer who called people over just now said to Qingpin in an official tone. This made Gahan very curious. What did Qingpin do to provoke the police to arrest her? Hey. Qingpin stuck out her tongue at these police officers. No, I won't surrender. Except for Gahan, no one can make Qingpin surrender. No, even if Gahan comes, Qingpin will not surrender. Who is Gahan? Do you know? I don't know. I've never heard of this person. Several police officers whispered. After being glared at by the captain, they bitterly shut their mouths. Little girl, hurry up and get out of the way. Do you know that you are committing a crime? If you commit a crime, you will be arrested by the police uncle and sent to prison. You will never be able to watch cartoons again, the police captain said with the usual routine. No, Qingpin will never get out of the way. Qingpin will not let you bully her again. Qingpin opened her hands, like an old hen protecting a chick, protecting the little girl who was covered with bruises and bruises behind her. It turned out that the reason why Qingpin provoked the police was because he wanted to protect the little girl behind him from being taken away by the police. Little girl, you don't know that none of us will bully her. We just want to send her back to her sword bearer. This little girl is not an ordinary girl. She is a sword mistress. She has just experienced a very cruel battle and suffered very serious injuries. She needs her master to send her to the maintenance workshop for maintenance and repair. The police captain persuaded earnestly. Behind the captain, a shifty-eyed guy dressed in branded clothing and wearing a personal terminal for a sword mistress shouted, Yes, police comrade, my sword mistress has suffered a very serious injury and needs to be repaired immediately. You guys quickly arrest this unreasonable little girl and return my sword mistress to me. It seemed that this shifty-eyed guy was the sword mistress of the little girl who was covered with bruises and bruises. He's lying. Qingpin clearly saw this man whipping her with all his might in the forest in the park. He didn't even wear pants. The injuries on her body were caused by this man. Qingpin said loudly, Is that so? The police captain turned around and looked at the man suspiciously. Realizing that the police had begun to suspect him, the man immediately panicked. He extended his personal terminal for the police to see. Police comrade, look carefully. This is the personal terminal for a sword mistress. I am a sword mistress. How can a sword mistress lie? Sigh. The police captain sighed slightly. Although he also felt that there were many suspicious points, there was one thing that the man was right about. How could a sword mistress lie? Even if this sword mistress really wanted to do some ugly things to this poor little girl, he could only help him arrest this little girl. According to the law, only the discipline committee of the Sword Council had the authority to investigate the sword mistress. As a police captain who could only manage civilians, he had no right to go against the sword mistress. You guys arrest this little girl and bring her back. The police captain had no choice but to order his men to arrest her. However, he also reminded them, "Remember, don't hurt this little girl. She's a good girl." Yes. The few policemen looked at each other. They were all experienced policemen. This sword mistress was obviously suspicious. This little girl, named Pin, was probably telling the truth. But what could they do? Could they offend a sword mistress? Perhaps on the surface, the sword mistress wouldn't do anything to a small policeman because of the discipline committee. But in the dark, they had plenty of ways to deal with them. The discipline committee wouldn't care about these trivial matters. In the end, they and their families would suffer. Therefore, these policemen went against their conscience to arrest Pin. At this time, Gahan, who was watching from the crowd, knew that he had to make an appearance. He wasn't afraid that the policeman would hurt his Pin. If a sword mistress was hurt by the policeman, then Pin would be a disgrace to the sword mistress. He was afraid that Pin would hurt these policemen. The policeman's hesitant expressions and the police captain's instructions to not let Pin get hurt were heard by Gahan. Gahan knew that these policemen were also helpless. "Stop!" Gahan pushed aside the crowd in front of him and walked out. As soon as Pin saw Gahan, she immediately cheered and waved and shouted, "Gahan, Pin is here. Gahan, you finally came. Pin has been waiting anxiously. Hurry up and tell these idiots that Pin is telling the truth." This was Gahan. After hearing Pin say Gahan's name countless times, the policemen turned their heads to see who this Gahan was. It turned out that he was a handsome young man. Okay, I know what you said is the truth. Thank you for your hard work." Gahan smiled bitterly and slowly walked toward Pin. "Wait, who are you? This is a crime scene. You can't get close." A policeman wanted to stop Gahan, but the older policeman next to him grabbed his sleeve. "Don't mess around. Didn't you see his personal terminal?" The younger policeman only noticed that Gahan also had the personal terminal of a swordsman after the older policeman reminded him. It seemed that this Gahan was also a swordsman. No wonder this little girl was so fearless. She also had a swordsman behind her. It was a pity that the policeman with no background like us had to suffer in the middle of these two swordsmen. "Thank you for your hard work. You did a great job." Gahan picked up Pin and kissed her on the cheek. Then he smiled at the policeman and said, "What do you want to do with my sword mistress?" Chapter 227. This young lady is a sword mistress. The policemen looked at each other. They did not expect that the young lady who was confronting them with her hands on her waist was actually a sword mistress. The policeman suddenly started sweating profusely. According to the law, a sword mistress could retaliate at will when threatened by a human without being held responsible. In other words, if they really tried to capture this sword mistress and were killed by her, they would only have themselves to blame. No one would stand up for them. "What are you guys doing? Hurry up and save my sword mistress. Hurry up and help her," the shifty-eyed sword mistress yelled. This made the policeman even more uncomfortable. There was still a sword mistress behind them who was asking them to save the sword mistress who was covered in cuts and bruises. With sword mistresses on both sides, the policemen looked disgusted as if they had just eaten shit. No matter which side they sided with, they would be the unlucky ones in the end. "Forget it. You guys don't have to interfere. Let me talk to this sword mistress," Gahan said with a wave of his hand. The policemen immediately retreated to the side, as if they had been pardoned from a crime. "Well, this kind of thing should be solved by you sword mistresses, or you could ask your disciplinary committee for help. What does it have to do with poor policemen like us?" As the policemen retreated, the alley suddenly turned into a standoff between Gahan and the shifty-eyed sword mistress. As the stalemate began, beads of sweat began to form on the shifty-eyed swordsman's forehead. Even though his face seemed calm, his twitching muscles indicated that his heart wasn't as calm as he presented himself. On the other side, Gahan was full of smiles. He looked like a smiling Methriel Buddha. "What's your name?" Gahan suddenly asked the swordsman in front of him. "Bai Jia. My name is Bai Jia." The shifty-eyed sword mistress answered subconsciously. "Oh, why are you pretending to be a sword mistress?" Gahan asked again. "Oh, because..." Bai Jia immediately raised his head in panic and yelled, "No, I'm not pretending to be a sword mistress. I'm a real sword mistress. Don't slander me. Oomph. Gohan snorted coldly. Fine. Since you said that you're the sword bearer, and this sword maiden is your sword bearer, you can take this little girl back. You really want me to take it back? Bai Jie hurriedly stepped forward, wanting to take the young lady behind Qing Pin away. Wait, who told you to do it yourself? Gohan waved his hand. Who told you to do it yourself? Don't you even know how to summon the sword maiden? With just a thought, your sword maiden will automatically fly back into your hands. Why do you have to work so hard yourself? Bai Jie was instantly drenched in sweat as he stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. 10 seconds later, he raised his head with difficulty and revealed an angry expression. Who's listening to you? Do you think that whatever you say is right? I'm not going to listen to you. Just you wait. I'm going to complain to the discipline committee right now. Stay here and don't move. Wait for me to bring the discipline committee member over. Bai Jie threatened and took a few steps back. It sounded like he was going to complain to the discipline committee, but only the heavens knew if he was actually trying to escape or something. Why do you have to go through so much trouble by walking over? Can't you just use the sword bearer's personal terminal? The discipline committee's reporting number is on the front page of the sword bearer's personal terminal. You just have to tap on it, and the discipline committee member will naturally come over. Don't tell me you've forgotten about that, Gohan said calmly. Forget it. In case you say that you don't want to listen to me, I'll just call the discipline committee. All right. I can also ask the discipline committee what kind of punishment they'll receive for pretending to be a sword bearer. With that, Gohan pretended to open his personal terminal to call the discipline committee. I can't wait any longer. I'll go look for the discipline committee myself. Bai Jie shuddered and threw out these dry words. He pushed through the crowd and ran outside. Judging by his speed, he was almost as fast as Usain Bolt from 1,000 years ago. Hey, what are you guys still standing there for? Hurry up and arrest him. Seeing that Bai Jie had already run far away and the policemen around him were still indifferent, Gohan helplessly shouted at the policeman. Oh, what? After him. The policemen snapped out of their daze. Even an idiot could tell that they had just been fooled by this brat called Bai Jie. They were instantly enraged. They could cower in front of a sword bearer, but how could they cower in front of a mere liar? More than 10 policemen ran in the direction of Bai Jie's escape. Although these policemen weren't very smart, they still had basic police skills. Under the command of the captain, more than 10 policemen split up from 4 to 5 directions and started to surround and intercept the escaping Bai Jie. After more than 10 minutes of cat and mouse, Bai Jie, whose limbs were limp, was pressed to the ground by 2 policemen and escorted back to the crime scene, which was next to Gohan. During this period of pursuit, Gohan also communicated with Qing Pin to understand the basic situation of the matter. It turned out that when Gohan was in a daze, no matter how much he teased Gohan, he didn't get a response. Bored and a little angry, Qing Pin suddenly noticed some movement in the forest in the distance. Curious, Qing Pin ran over to take a look and saw a scene that made Qing Pin explode in anger. The shifty-eyed Bai Jie was holding a whip in his hand and was constantly lashing it at a girl who looked even smaller than Qing Pin. This Bai Jie was even unbuckling his belt and taking off his pants. No one knew what he was going to do. Of course, Qing Pin, who was bursting with a sense of justice, wouldn't let this bad guy do such a thing in front of him. So he waved his Qing Pin sword and charged out while shouting, "Bad guy, pervert!" Bai Jie was shocked. Even though Qing Pin was just a young lowly, this coward didn't dare to make a move when he saw the sword in Qing Pin's hand. It was only when Qing Pin dragged the girl away that he let out a strange cry. At this time, 2 policemen happened to pass by. So, Bai Jie used his identity as a sword bearer to say that his sword lady had been kidnapped and asked the policemen to rescue her. These policemen were all newbies. When they saw the sword bearer's personal terminal, they were confused and followed Bai Jie's instructions to his teammates to chase after Qing Pin. Under the pursuit of these policemen, the pitiful and petite Qing Pin could only drag the girl who wasn't much smaller than him and run everywhere. When they finally reached this alley, the girl who was covered in cuts and bruises suddenly fainted. Qing Pin had no choice but to be stopped by the policeman and Bai Jie. What happened next was witnessed by Gahan. Gahan, Qingpin did the right thing, didn't he? Hurry up and praise Qingpin. Hurry up and praise him. Qingpin sat on Gahan's neck and quickly knocked on Gahan's head like a drum. He was trying to get Gahan to praise him. Qingpin was also a good kid who liked to be praised. You still want me to praise you? You only know how to run around and make me look for you. Can't you run to my side and ask me to protect you? Gahan patted Qingpin's calves that were hanging on his head. If I didn't come in time, you would have been in big trouble. Humph, Stinky Gahan, you were in a daze just now. Qingpin's throat is hoarse from all the shouting and my hands are hurting, but you ignored Qingpin. Qingpin won't ask for your help. Qingpin complained coquettishly. Sigh. Even his complaining tone was so cute. Mr. Gahan, we've caught this stupid thief. At that moment, the police captain grabbed Bai Jia, who was tightly bound by the beam handcuffs, and dragged him over. He pushed him to the ground in front of Gahan. The swordsman, who was so powerful just a moment ago, was now lying in front of Gahan like a dead dog. Looking at the scars on his face, it seemed like he'd been beaten up by the police to vent his anger. Sir, I didn't know this was your sword lady. Sir, please let me go like you're playing a song. Bai Jia knelt in front of Gahan and wailed. He looked like a pitiful worm who had lost everything after losing his disguise. Let me ask you, what's your relationship with this little girl? Why are you torturing her like this? Gahan asked Bai Jia in a condescending manner. Sir, I don't know her. I just saw her walking on the street alone and thought she was lost, so I wanted to tease her. Sir, I was wrong. I was lustful. Please forgive me, sir, Bai Jia begged. Then how did you get the personal terminal of the swordsman? Gahan asked again. Oh, I modified it myself. This was originally an ordinary personal terminal. I just found some materials and modified it myself. Sir, I really made a mistake. Sir, I'm a good person. Trash. Gahan cursed and gestured to the police captain. Sir, I'll leave this person to you. I'm not interested in dealing with trash like him. Understood. The police captain nodded quickly, indicating that he would do as he was told. We're leaving too. Gahan patted Qingpin's calf, indicating that it was time for him to leave. No, Gahan, what about her if we leave? Qingpin pointed at the little girl and begged cutely. She's so pitiful. Gahan, can we save her? Aren't the police here? The police will save her. Gahan didn't even look at the little girl. If it wasn't for the fact that she was poor, he wouldn't even be interested in exposing Bai Jia. Lady Sword, don't worry. We'll definitely take good care of this little girl. We'll even help you find her family. Don't worry, we're the people's police, and the people's police serve the people. With that, the two police officers picked up the little girl on the ground and prepared to bring her back to the police station. Oh, Qingpin seemed to have a good impression of the little girl. Seeing that Gahan was not going to help, she was a little upset. Gahan turned around to comfort her, then subconsciously glanced at the little girl. At that moment, the little girl was in the police officer's arms. Her little face was on the police officer's shoulder, and her face was facing Gahan's eyes. Smack! Gahan, who saw the little girl's face for the first time, accidentally dropped Qingpin to the ground. Chapter 228. Captain, I'm taking this person with me. Gahan hugged the young girl who was covered in wounds and tenderly held her in his arms, not willing to let go. For some unknown reason, Gahan actually changed his attitude of disdain towards this young girl in an instant. I don't think that's appropriate. The captain frowned. According to the law, we, the police, should be responsible for the affairs of ordinary people. We should take care of this girl and help her find her family. She's not a girl. She's a sword mistress. Gahan glared at the captain. The captain was so scared that he took a few steps back. He thought to himself, this person's eyes are so scary. I only took a glance, and I felt the aura of death. Since she's a sword mistress, we, the sword mistress, will be responsible for her. Qingpin, let's go. Gahan then casually picked up the poor man on the ground and stuffed him into the infant nurturing pouch on his chest, then left in a cloud of dust. Sir, why did you take her away? How are we going to write the report? I can't explain it to the higher-ups. The captain was about to cry when he saw Gahan leaving. The report is your business, not mine. If you don't know how to write it, just report it to the higher-ups. I can't be bothered with you. Don't worry. Even if you report it to the higher-ups, I won't take revenge on you. Guhan said and disappeared completely. F***CK. I think this guy probably fell for the girl's beauty. He just like Bai Jia, a pervert. What a scum, a beast. None of the sword mistresses are good people. If it wasn't for the fact that humans need their protection, I could have killed him with a single shot. The captain spat on the ground after he saw Gahan disappear. This was all he could do. He didn't have the guts to do anything else. Captain, what should we do? How should we write the report? A few policemen came over and asked their captain bitterly. What else can we do? Of course, we'll make it up. The captain said impatiently. Just say that Bai Jia kidnapped the girl and was exposed by the sword mistress, Gahan. Just write it like this. But what if the parents of the girl who was taken away come and ask us for the child? A policeman scratched his head. Just tell them that the sword mistress took a liking to the child and took her home to be her disciple. If they have the ability, they can ask the sword mistress for the child themselves. The captain continued to make up a story. Captain, isn't this too unconscionable? A policeman touched his conscience. He felt that this was completely against his original intention of being a police officer. Didn't you hear the sword mistress say that I won't take revenge on you? The police captain rolled his eyes at his subordinates. He's telling us that if this matter gets out, he won't even give us a chance to retaliate in secret. We'll be dead on the spot. By and God, what is this? Why the sword mistress never picked me when I was young. You're such a snob. You're such a sword mistress. Puffed. Although this incident was eventually covered up by the police officers and was not made public, no family member of the girl had ever come looking for the girl. So it was hidden deep in their hearts. Until one day, when they watched the news broadcast, they found out the final outcome of Guhan and the little girl. Then they were dumbfounded, filled with emotions, and deeply ridiculed. I can't believe I actually spoke with Jindy. My ancestors must be so lucky. Gahan placed the little girl in the medical pod. The girl's injuries were all external, so there was no need for her to go to a hospital. She only needed to stay in the medical pod for a while to heal. In fact, taking the little girl to a hospital was the best choice. There might be some injuries that the medical pod could not detect and treat, and they would need professional doctors and medical equipment to treat them. However, Gahan had just checked the little girl's body and found that she did not have a personal terminal on her. This was very inconceivable. Every human being was implanted with a personal terminal chip the moment they were born. Then, they would wear a personal terminal on their arm that was fused with their skin. If a person did not have a personal terminal, they would not be able to survive in the Bay City. All transactions and living conditions required a personal terminal as an intermediary. There is only one kind of woman in this base who did not have a personal terminal, and that was the sword mistress. Only a sword mistress did not need a personal terminal. However, Gahan had just checked the girl's body. She had blood, flesh, and internal organs. The medical pod scanner, and it showed that she was a normal human. There was nothing abnormal. If she was a sword mistress, just one point was enough to prove her identity. Sword mistresses did not have blood. Then, a very interesting thing happened. This girl was not a sword mistress, but she did not have a personal terminal. Combined with her shocking appearance, Gahan had a shocking guess. This girl was probably his biological sister, Gu Yun, who had been resurrected. Yes, at first glance, Guhan recognized this girl. She had the exact same appearance as his younger sister, Gu Yun. Just like that moment 12 years ago when he was frozen in sorrow, this girl was his younger sister, Gu Yun, whom he had never forgotten. Of course, Gahan knew that this was unbelievable, like a fantasy story, but the truth was right there. His parents and sister who had bid farewell to him in the dream, proving that their souls had always been by his side. She looked exactly like his sister. She did not have a personal terminal, and her body appeared in this world out of thin air. All of this was too much of a coincidence. It was so coincidental that Gahan had to believe that this girl was his sister, Guyen. Could it be that someone specially thought of a way to enter my dream and create such a realistic dream? Then, They created or had plastic surgery to create a girl who looked exactly like my sister. Finally, they took away the personal terminal that could prove the girl's identity, just to deceive me? That's impossible. I'm not worth someone's effort. Gohan shook his head. It was impossible. Even if all of this was true, so what? Looking at his sister's appearance, Gohan felt at ease. Oh well, I'll wait until she wakes up. During this whole process, he called Gu Yun. Let's call her Gu Yun for now. After placing Gu Yun in the medical pod, Gohan knelt beside the medical pod and looked at his sister through the transparent glass. He did not move for a long time. Master, it's time to eat. The food has been reheated 3 times. Outside the door, when Maiden, who was holding the reheated food 3 times, looked at Gohan's attentive expression, she could not help but feel curious. Who was this girl lying in the medical pod? She could actually make her master act in a way that she had never seen before. If when Maiden was only a little curious, then there was a little fellow who was a little angry. She felt that her position was deeply threatened. Gohan, Chinpin will give you some meat. An oily little hand was placed on Gohan's neck. Then, a large piece of pork was sent to Gohan's mouth and hit his tightly closed teeth. Gohan turned his head and saw Chinpin looking at him with a serious expression. He kept trying to open Gohan's tightly closed teeth and send the pork into Gohan's mouth. Seeing this scene, Gohan's heart warmed. He opened his mouth and allowed Chinpin to send a large piece of donpa meat and a small part of his palm into Gohan's mouth. Then, his mouth suddenly closed. Ouch! Chinpin cried. This annoying Gohan eating meat was fine, but he actually ate his palm. This made Chinpin a little distressed. Could it be that Gohan wanted to bite off his palm and eat it? If his palm was really eaten, what should he do? How should he eat meat in the future? Was he going to let Gohan feed him for the rest of his life? Thinking of this, it was not bad to let Gohan eat his palm. Unfortunately, Gohan did not eat Chinpin's palm into his stomach. Instead, like eating a lollipop, he licked Chinpin's little hand carefully. He licked the oil stains on the little hand into his stomach. Then, he spat out Chinpin's palm. Aya, this Gohan's licking is so comfortable. It's over. Gohan's licking is so comfortable that I'm addicted to this comfortable feeling. If he doesn't lick me like this in the future, then wouldn't I be like a poor kitten or puppy? Chinpin thought in a mess. Unknowingly, he was picked up by Gohan. Maiyun, you take care of Guyun. You must take good care of her. Don't let her get hurt again. Do you understand? Gohan twisted his stiff neck and handed the task of taking care of Guyun to Wen Maiyun. I'm going to take a bath. Chinpin made my neck full of oil stains. Gohan, Chinpin also wants to take a bath with you. Chinpin suddenly said such a sentence. This was not Chinpin's request to take a bath with Gohan, but Gohan had never agreed to this request. But this time, Gohan actually agreed for the first time. Okay, today we'll take a bath together as a pair of good friends. Wow. Really? Chinpin couldn't believe his ears. Gohan, are you really willing to take a bath with Chinpin? Yes, Gohan agrees. Gohan replied readily. Gohan, did you reward Chinpin because he did a good deed today? Chinpin helped Gohan find the most important person today. Today, all of Chinpin's requests, Gohan will agree to Gohan's request. Then Chinpin hopes that Gohan and Chinpin will always be together and place Chinpin in his heart. Will Gohan also agree to Chinpin's request? Of course, Chinpin will always be Gohan's heart. No one can separate us. Even if it's a desolate grade Yuan Ko, Gohan will kill him for you to see. Chapter 229. Mr. Luo, why isn't your class moving yet? The other classes have already set off. At the entrance of Yuzhong University, Gohan and the other students of class 2269 lined up in a rather neat line. They were silently waiting for their homeroom teacher, Luo Fan, to announce the time to set off. That day was the first day that class 2269 would go out of the city for actual combat training. Early in the morning, all the students gathered at the entrance of the school. They were only waiting for their homeroom teacher, Luo Fan, to leave the base city for the first time in their lives. They would head to the perilous outskirts of the base city and engage in a real battle with those Yuan Kos. They could lose their lives at any time. However, it was already past the time to set off, but the line still remained at the entrance of the school. This was a very rare thing. In the history of Yuzhong University, such a thing rarely happened. That was why a supervisor specifically came to question Luo Fan. Why wasn't he moving? Supervisor, there are still students in our class who haven't arrived yet. We can't set off. Luo Fan spread his hands, indicating that he had no solution. Mr. Luo, you're not a newbie. When has our Yuzhong University ever had a tradition of waiting for students who are late? Set off now. As for the student who is late, I'll wait for him here. I'll let him know what Yuzhong University's rules are. The supervisor said angrily. Half of this anger was directed at the student who was late and the other half at Luo Fan. Luo Fan was a qualified teacher. How could he make such a serious mistake? Since when did Yuzhong University need to care about a student's actions? I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor. I can't afford to offend this student. If she doesn't arrive, I'm afraid our class 22694 won't be able to move a single step. Luo Fan glanced at the supervisor. Mr. Supervisor, I won't harm you. Contact the principal yourself, and you'll know why I don't dare to move. I really have to wait until she arrives. Even if she comes in the afternoon, I want to wait until the afternoon. This is the principal's idea? After hearing Luo Fan's words, the supervisor was shocked. There was actually the principal's intention in this. This student could actually make the principal give such instructions that went against the school rules. How deep was the water in this matter? At this time, two graceful figures gradually walked over from not far away. Luo Fan let out a long sigh of relief. This little devil had finally arrived. He patted the supervisor on the shoulder and said, Supervisor, my student has arrived. Class 22694 will set off now. Hearing Luo Fan's words, the supervisor looked over. It turned out that the student who caught the principal's attention was a girl. The supervisor sized her up carefully. This girl's looks were average. She didn't seem to have any special temperament. She was just like a loser. However, the sword lady behind the girl was a stunning beauty. Her white dress fluttered in the wind, and she looked like a girl who walked out of an ink painting passed down from ancient times. Wait, why did this sword lady look so familiar? He felt like he had seen her somewhere before. The supervisor hurriedly opened his personal terminal and flipped through all the information of the ancient grade sword ladies. He flipped through the pictures of the top 200 sword ladies, but he didn't find a picture of this sword lady. The supervisor thought about it and decided to give it a try. He flipped through the pictures of the treasured grade sword lady. In the end, when he flipped to the third picture, he saw this sword lady in white. Beside her was the information of the sword lady. Treasured grade sword lady Tuan sword. Third place in the treasured sword record. It's actually the sword lady Tianwen sword. Third place in the treasured sword grade. I heard from my friends in the sword pavilion that one of the treasured sword grade treasures, the natural sword lady Tianwen sword, had been coordinated away by someone. Could it be that it was taken away by this student? The supervisor mumbled to himself. Suddenly, the supervisor's expression changed drastically. I remember that class 22694 was established 2 weeks ago, and the earliest sword bearers in it were only 3 weeks ago. Could it be that this female student only used 3 weeks to become a sword bearer? Could it be that this female student only used 3 weeks to become a sword bearer? That's too exaggerated. I spent 3 whole years to complete this progress. After being stunned for a long time, the supervisor finally accepted this fact. He then shook his head in a self-deprecating manner and left the school gate. Becoming a treasured grade sword bearer in 3 weeks and synchronizing the natural sword lady, who ranked 3rd in the treasured sword grade, naturally made the principal and Luo Fan treat her like a treasure. So what if she was late? Even if she beat him up, the principal would probably pinch his nose and accept it. This was the world of sword bearers. Although it seemed to be full of order, it was still a world where strength spoke the loudest. But then again, there was not a single world in the universe where strength spoke the loudest. Teacher, aren't we going out of the city? Why are we going to the core area instead? After following the class for a long time, a student raised a question. They did not seem to be on the path out of the city. We have to go to the service center for sword bearers first to handle some necessary procedures for you brats. At the same time, I'll tell you the rules of life for sword bearers. Luo Fan said with a laugh as he walked to the Sword Bearers Mission Center of the Service Center. Brats, welcome to the Sword Bearers Mission Center. But that's the official name. We sword bearers like to call this place the Mercenary Hall. Luo Fan laughed heartily as he pushed open the so-called Mercenary Hall. This hall had a Western fantasy feel to it. In an instant, a loud noise rushed into the ears of Gahan and the others. The hall was densely packed with people. A rough estimate estimated that there were at least 500 to 600 people in this hall. According to the rules, those who were not sword bearers were not qualified to enter the Sword Bearers Mission Center, but these 500 to 600 people were all sword bearers. This was the first time Guhan had seen so many real sword bearers in real life. This was probably the hall with the most sword bearers in Yuzhong City. On both sides of the hall, there were countless display screens. Missions kept appearing and disappearing on the screens. At the bottom of the screens, dozens of windows opened at the same time. Each window had 2 to 3 staff members in charge of receiving the sword bearers. Each window seemed to be extremely busy. Yo, old Luo, you brought a bunch of newbies with you. You have a lot of work ahead of you. A few sword bearers who were familiar with Luo Fan came up to greet Luo Fan. Damn, thanks to you, I'm about to die from being busy. Luo Fan punched the man's chest and started chatting with him in high spirits. Guhan, Teacher Luo looks very familiar here. Song Hama whispered into Gahan's ear as she saw people coming out of the mission hall to greet Luo Fan. That's normal. As Yuzhong University's homeroom teacher, Teacher Luo comes to the Mercenary Hall at least 3 times a week. How could he not be familiar with these sword bearers? Liu Yinling came up to Gahan and took the initiative to explain. On the other side, Luo Fan was still chatting with his friends. Hey, old Luo, isn't the class in your hands about to graduate? How about giving me a few people? You don't know this, but last week we encountered a wild Ultraman and 3 people died. Now, we can't even assemble a sword formation. If you don't help me, my team will have to disband. The person who was talking to Luo Fan was the leader of a team of sword bearers. From what he said, it seemed like he had encountered an Ultraman when he was adventuring outside the city. Generally speaking, Ultramans were dragon level or above. Yuan Ko being able to escape safely was already a very good achievement. Forget it, my class graduated last month. This group of people are all newbies who have just become sword bearers. If they join your team, they won't even know how they died. Luo Fan rejected his friend's request and returned to the team. He then led the 30 people from Class 22694 into the mission hall for sword bearers. Listen carefully to what I'm going to say next. If anything goes wrong, you'll be the one to suffer. It has nothing to do with me. Luo Fan paused for a moment. As sword bearers, I believe that you've all enjoyed treatment that surpasses ordinary people and enjoyed the status of a superior person in the past 2 weeks. However, you didn't earn this status. It's given to you by the sword bearer's badge that you're wearing. It's given to you by the sword bearer's duty to protect the survival of mankind. If you can't fulfill your duty, then you'll be kicked out of the sword bearer's team without hesitation. Although you've received your personal terminal, it's complete. Some of its functions are still sealed. Later, I'll bring you to open the window and unlock all the functions of your personal terminal. Then, you'll truly become a sword bearer, or more accurately, a sword bearer mercenary. Your employer isn't me or anyone else, but the sword committee and the entire human race that hired you. After the official opening and unlocking, you'll automatically receive 100 hero coins. What are hero coins? To put it bluntly, hero coins are also a type of money. However, they're different from RMB, which is used by ordinary people. Hero coins are coins that can only be used by sword bearers. In fact, the various privileges that you've enjoyed in the past 2 weeks, such as the citizen quota, the residence in the core area, the personal maid, the RMB subsidy, and even the arrogance that you've shown in front of ordinary people, aren't free. They're all bought with hero coins. As an ancient sword bearer, The Sword Committee will charge you 50 hero coins every month for the privileges that you've enjoyed. You can think of it as a tax. You should know that the hero coins you have now will only last you for 2 months. After 2 months, your hero coins will be used up. When that time comes, all the privileges that you've enjoyed will be taken away. You might even be chased out of the core area along with your parents and sent back to the overcrowded honeycomb house. If you don't want to go back to the past, then you'd better buck up and summon your courage. There are more than enough missions in the Mercenary Hall for you. As long as you complete them, tens, hundreds, or even thousands of hero coins won't be a problem. Chapter 230. After Luo Fan's explanation, everyone roughly understood what the Swordsman Mission Hall and Hero Coin were. To put it simply, if the swordsmen and their families wanted to enjoy privileges in human society, they had to make contributions to human society every month. However, it was too difficult to define contribution. If you killed a rat-level Yuan Ko, it would be a contribution. If others killed a dragon-level Yuan Ko, it would also be a contribution. However, the contribution between the two was obviously incomparable. Thus, the mercenary mission system and hero coin came into being. Until now, it had been running steadily for more than 900 years. This system first created the unique currency of swordsmen, the hero coin. In order to maintain the value of the hero coin, the Sword Committee and the Council tied many benefits exclusively to the hero coin. For example, after becoming a swordsman, they would get a residence in the core area, exclusive maid benefits, and so on. Every ancient swordsman would have 50 hero coins deducted every month to maintain these benefits. This fee was affectionately called a monthly card by the swordsman. As the level of the swordsman increased, the fee would continue to increase. For example, the monthly card for a treasured swordsman would be 150 hero coins, and a famed swordsman would require a monthly card of 500 hero coins. There were also sword mark dust, materials for the sword inscription ritual, sword mistress equipment, and many other rare resources that swordsmen couldn't use. All of these required hero coins to be exchanged. Of course, hero coins could be directly exchanged for RMB. The ratio was 1 hero coin equals 1,000 renminbi. However, unless one was extremely short of money, no one would exchange hero coins for RMB. On the contrary, the swordsmen were very excited that RMB could be exchanged for hero coins. There was only one way to obtain hero coins, and that was to complete the various missions issued by the mission center. These missions range from the most basic patrolling missions to killing a specific Yuan Ko, and so on. There was a wide variety of them. The swordsman could also use the video recording of killing Yuan Ko to exchange Yuan Ko's head for hero coins without accepting any missions. In short, as long as the swordsman went out to fight and killed Yuan Ko, he would be able to obtain hero coins. In addition, it was important to note that in order to avoid some business operations, some business geniuses would be able to obtain a large number of hero coins through certain business operations. As long as a person did not leave the city and did not fight, they would still be able to obtain a large number of hero coins. Therefore, hero coins were strictly prohibited from being traded between sword bearers. Hero coins could only be obtained through quests and Yuan Ko's kill recordings, and hero coins could only be used through transactions with the relevant government departments. Other than that, there was no other way to obtain or use hero coins. This forced the wielder of the sword to go out and fight. If they didn't want to fight, they would have to go back to being a commoner. After explaining everything, Luo Fan began to instruct his students to open a window to completely unlock his hero coins account on his personal terminal. At the same time, his account had an additional 100 hero coins. This was the benefit that every beginner sword wielder received. You could choose to use 100 hero coins to survive for 2 months, or you could choose to exchange them for some special tools at the trade shop to increase your strength. Now, everyone, go to the General Quest window to accept the Miling Mountain Dimensional Crystal Mine mining mission. Once you have accepted it, gather at my place. Hurry up. As soon as Luo Fan gave the order, the students rushed to the general quest window. A few of them even pushed each other in order to compete for a spot at the front. Ayaya, what a group of young and cute children. An old sword wielder lamented when he saw this scene. Back then, I also walked this path with my classmates. I didn't expect to see this scene again today. Yeah, I was like this back then too. In order to accept the mission earlier, I even punched that brat, Fei Yin, another friend of the old sword wielder side. Now that I think about it, I really regret it. Fei Yin died that day. When he died, he must have hated me very much. Who knows? He just kept crying at that time. The old sword wielder side. I wonder how many of these children will come back alive. Oldly, do you know how many people in our class are still alive? 5? 6? I don't know. Oldly shook his head. I can't contact 3 of them. I don't know if they're dead or not. Oldly, why don't we organize a class reunion tomorrow? I miss them a little. Okay, let's have a good drink and find a few girls to have some fun with. Oldly readily agreed. The students of class 22694 would never have imagined that their fooling around would evoke the memories of some of their seniors. Hello, this is the mission book for the Miling Mountain Dimensional Crystal Mine mining mission. If there are no problems, please sign on the mission book, and it will be considered a success. Gohan took a closer look at the mission book. The mission requirements were very simple. He had to collect at least 2,000 sword essences from the Miling Mountain Dimensional Crystal Mine and hand them over to the Sword Wielder Mission Center to complete the mission. He would then receive a reward of 15 hero coins. Dimensional crystal mines were a large number of crystals that appeared along with the appearance of large-scale dimensional rifts. They contained various types of sword essences and were a necessary material for the forging of various Yuan Ko's specialized tools. The base city used a lot of sword essences and never complained about having too many. Therefore, this mission was a common mission that could be accepted repeatedly. It was also used by Luo Fan as a simple mission to train the newbies. After Gohan accepted the mission and left the window, a hand suddenly grabbed his arm and pulled Gohan to the side. "What are you doing, Liu Ling?" Gohan took a whiff of the fragrance and knew that it was Liu Ling's scent. This girl didn't look very good, but her body smelled very good. He didn't know what kind of perfume she wore. If there was a chance, he would buy a bottle for Qingpin. Wasn't it a little too early for Qingpin? In fact, Qingpin's milk fragrance was already very pleasant. Idiot, don't tell me you went out to bask in the sun after accepting a mission. Liu Ling nibbled on Gohan's ear and didn't have any of the reservations of a young lady from a prestigious family. "Let me tell you a good thing." "I know." Gohan smiled and said, "It is nothing more than telling me to accept more missions that can be completed together. This way, I can earn more hero coins, right?" "How did you know that?" Liu Ling looked at Gohan in surprise. "Of course I thought of it. Any normal person would be able to think of something like that." Gohan glanced at Liu Ling. "How did you know that?" You know who I am. As the direct descendant of the Liu Yin family, do you think that I would be like you, playing games at home every day after my first synchronization? I came here the next day to unlock my personal terminal. I've been on a killing spree outside the city for the past few days. I've killed so many Yuan Shan that they're in a frenzy. This mining mission is my 35th mission. You're amazing. Gohan nodded. He was truly impressed by this young lady. It had only been a few days since the battle with the Xian sword, but she had already completed 35 missions. She must have been spending the past few days outside the city. As the direct descendant of the Liu Yin family, she was actually willing to risk her life to such an extent. It was not without reason that the Liu Yin family was able to stand at the top of the human race for 1,000 years. All right, we don't have much time left. Let me tell you, there are a total of 4 missions near Plum Ridge. You can complete them while you're mining. The 4 missions are... Before Liu Ling could finish her sentence, Gohan had already shaken off Liu Ling and strode away. Liu Ling was infuriated. She cursed Gohan in her heart for being a heartless bastard. After a few minutes, Gohan returned to Liu Ling's side with a mission list in his hand. "Take a look and see if the missions you mentioned are here." Gohan tossed the mission list to Liu Ling. Liu Ling quickly took it and looked through it. Her face immediately stiffened. Not only were the 4 missions on the list, but there was also an additional mission that she didn't know about. She looked at the mission description carefully. It was indeed a mission that could be completed together with the harvesting mission. You, Li, how? Although she was unwilling, Liu Nianling still spat out those 3 words in admiration. She was able to find the 4 missions because she had been in Plum Ridge for a few days. She knew the nearby missions like the back of her hand. But this Guhan looked like he had only been here for a day. How did he manage to find these 4 quests among all these dazzling quests? How did you find them? Is your brain that good? Liu Nianling didn't want to ask, but she couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. I don't know if my brain is good or not, but I know that as long as you Baidu search for missions that can be completed together with the Plum Ridge Dimensional Crystal Mine, a bunch of strategies will appear. Choose the one with the most clicks in the past month, and it will record these 5 missions in detail. Oh yes, I still have to go to Song Hama and ask him to accept these missions. See you later. After saying that, Gahan left in a hurry. F*CK. Liu Nianling was so angry that she almost vomited blood. This Gahan was too hurtful. Supervisor, it's me. The target is preparing to leave Yuzhong City. Somewhere in the mission center, a person was communicating through a personal terminal among a group of onlookers. Yes, but Supervisor, Miss is with the target now. What should I do? Yes, I understand. The next second, the figure disappeared without a trace. On the other side, Gohan didn't notice it at all. After all, Gohan wasn't a god. Chapter 231. Yuzhong Base City covered a large area. It would take several hours to walk from the core area to the city walls, so Luo Fan didn't plan on letting his students walk. Instead, he brought the students of Class 22694 to the transportation center of the Swordbearer Service Center and rented a medium-sized hover bus for Class 22694's transportation. As for the rental fee of 20 hero coins a day, that would naturally be shared by the students. They couldn't expect Luo Fan, the homeroom teacher, to pay for it, could they? Fortunately, the fee wasn't much. It wouldn't cost more than 1 hero coin per person, provided they didn't have to spend the night outside the city. The hover bus took less than 20 minutes to reach the exit of the city gate from the core area. At that moment, Liu Nianling, who was sitting next to Gahan, suddenly noticed that the city wall to the left of the city gate looked a little strange. It gave off a feeling that it didn't fit in with the surrounding city walls. Liu Nianling was puzzled. She poked Gahan's waist. Hey, Sour Popsicle, you're from Yuzhong City. You must know why the city wall looks so strange, right? Ever since she felt disgusted by Gahan at the Swordbearer Service Center, Liu Nianling had given up on calling Gahan by his name. Instead, she learned from Song Hama and called Guhan Sour Popsicle. Ever since she called him Sour Popsicle, Liu Nianling had fallen in love with this nickname. She felt that it was a perfect match for Gahan, so she simply stopped calling Gahan by his name. However, no matter how much Liu Nianling poked Gahan's waist, Gahan ignored Liu Nianling and didn't even look at her. This made Liu Nianling angry again. She kept poking Gahan until Song Hama, who was sitting next to Gahan, was pushed to a seat behind Gahan. He couldn't stand it anymore and patted Liu Nianling on the shoulder. Big Miss A.O. Lin, stop poking the Sour Popsicle. Even if he were to break his waist, there's no way he would answer your question. Song Hama said with a bitter look on her face. What? Liu Nianling turned around and began to interrogate Song Hama. Song Hama wasn't as calm as Gahan. After being tortured by Liu Nianling for a while, he could only answer honestly. Actually, the reason why this wall looks a little awkward is that this area's wall is newly built. The other walls are old walls that were built more than 100 years ago. Naturally, the two look different. Liu Nianling came to a sudden realization. She took a closer look and indeed, that area's wall was newer. But immediately, a new question popped up. Hey, Song Hama, why is this part of the wall newly built? Why didn't you fix it together? This. Song Hama's expression became even more bitter. Miss Liu Nianling, I can't tell you. Please don't ask, okay? Although Song Hama was begging, Liu Nianling didn't care about these things. She continued to pester Song Hama. But this time, no matter how much she tossed and turned, Song Hama didn't say a word. 12 years ago, Yuzhong City didn't resist the invasion. The dimensional barrier was breached, and the breakthrough point was nearby. Then, a large number of Yuan Ko broke through the wall you see and killed their way into Yuzhong City. After the invasion ended, the city walls were repaired. Do you understand? A lazy voice with a hint of pain explained in detail. The owner of this voice was none other than Gahan, who sat beside Liu Ling and didn't say a word. I see. Liu Ling nodded after getting the answer. But she wasn't satisfied. Instead, she said with dissatisfaction, "Why are the two of you stuttering and refusing to answer me? Do you not treat me, Liu Ling, as a friend? Two petty men, Ao Ling, look down on the two of you. Enough, Miss Liu Ling. Please stop. Please stop." Song Hama hurriedly tried to cover Liu Ling's mouth. He was afraid that if Liu Ling continued, it would cause Gahan to explode. That would be troublesome. But how could an ordinary swordsman be a match for Liu Ling of the Lu Nian family? Liu Ling just twisted her neck left and right, and Song Hama couldn't touch Liu Ling's mouth no matter what. Ignore her, Toad. There's nothing you can't say. Gahan gestured for Song Hama to sit back down. During that invasion, 90 underground shelters in Yuzhong City were breached. 890,000 ordinary people died in the hands of Yuan Ko, including my father, mother, and sister. If I wasn't lucky, I would have died then. That's why I couldn't be bothered to answer your boring question. Do you understand? Miss Ao Ling. Hearing Guhan's words, Liu Ling's face instantly turned pale. She knew that she had made a huge mistake. Although Gahan's tone was calm, he must hate her in his heart. What should I do? For some reason, Liu Ling was filled with anxiety and pain when she thought that Gahan would hate her. She desperately wanted to make up for her mistake. Suddenly, she remembered a novel she had read before. The domineering female president raped me. In the novel, when the male protagonist was angry, the domineering female president only needed to kiss him, and he would immediately calm down. Gahan was one of the 4 heavenly kings under her. She could also be considered his domineering president. Plop! Liu Ling kissed Gahan's face, leaving a deep saliva mark. Such an exciting scene stunned Gahan, Song Hama, who was behind Gahan, and even Luo Fan, who was hiding in the last row to watch. Don't misunderstand. I don't want to take you as one of the 4 heavenly generals. I just want to marry you as my husband. Liu Ling patted Gahan's chest domineeringly. How is it? Have you calmed down? Do you want me to kiss you again? Up to you. Gahan suddenly realized that there were times when he was at a loss and didn't know what to do. For example, facing Liu Ling right now, his developed IQ was completely useless. Ayaya, what a comfortable sleep. Stinky Gahan, are we out of the city? As long as it entered Gahan's nursery, it would become especially sleepy. Qingpin, who slept for 8 out of 10 hours, stretched its body and poked its head out of the nursery. As a result, it saw Liu Ling sitting beside Gahan at a glance. Good morning. Qingpin stretched out a small hand and greeted Liu Ling. It looked so cute and energetic. Good morning. Liu Ling hurriedly greeted Qingpin. This was a good opportunity to ease her embarrassment and change the topic. And good. Qingpin's greeting was quite perfunctory. She and Liu Ling greeted her and then ignored her. Instead, she climbed out of the nursery, rode on Gahan's head, and hit it hard. Stinky Gahan, you woke me up early in the morning and didn't even give me food. I'm starving and skinny. Wait, no. Suddenly, Qingpin, who was complaining, seemed to find something wrong. She sniffed, lowered her head, and sniffed again. Then she shouted, Wow, Stinky Gahan, why do I smell another woman's saliva on your face? Oh no, Qingpin is going to die. Qingpin is going to die. Gahan's face is stained with another woman's saliva. Qingpin is going to die. Seeing that Qingpin had discovered her traces, Liu Ling lowered her head guiltily. Qingpin has a way to deal with it. The poor man stuffed his hands into his mouth and smeared his hands with saliva. Then, he smeared his saliva on the faces of Guhan as if he was washing his face. Ha! The faces of Guhan are now smelling of the poor man's saliva. Toad, did you bring a tissue? Faced with such a scene, all the onlookers who were watching the drama were stunned. Only the central character, Guhan, looked extraordinarily calm and even asked Song Hama for a tissue. I have. Before Song Hama could pull out a tissue, Fleeting Time had already pulled out a pack of wet wipes. It was normal for a girl to carry a few packs of wet wipes with her. Thank you. Guhan took the wet towel and wiped off all the saliva on his face. Then he grabbed the poor man's neck and stuffed him back into the baby pouch. Then he patted the poor man's head in dissatisfaction. If you come out again, I'll deduct half of your lunch for today. Instantly, Qingpin quieted down. The drama that had started suddenly ended abruptly. What a pity! Luo Fan, who was looking forward to the next part of the plot, sighed. At this time, the hover bus officially passed the security check at Yuzhong City Gate. Except for Luo Fan and Liuyan Ling, it took a group of people who had never left the city and left the safety fortress of humanity for the first time. Chapter 232. This was the first time Gahan and the others had left Yuzhong City. Although some people imagined that as soon as they stepped out of the city gates, the outside world would be filled with corpses, desolate, and ruins, just like the world in Sword Maiden Online, the reality was not like that. In fact, a large area outside the city was a relatively peaceful paradise. Fields were seamlessly linked together, and as far as the eye could see, it was all green. Just like what was written in the books of the ancients, there were crisscrossed paths, and chickens and dogs could hear each other. It was completely like a paradise on Earth. The fields were not to be underestimated. About 40% of Yuzhong City's food was produced by these fields. As for the other 60%, it was tasteless artificial nutrient solution. If you drank too much of it, you wouldn't even be able to poop. The only thing that hindered the harmony was that the fields were too desolate. Along the way, there were no signs of humans. It was as if the fields had grown on their own and not been taken care of by humans. Of course, these fields did not grow on their own, but they were not taken care of by humans either. Instead, they were taken care of by automated machines. The humans stayed in the collective farms and were responsible for remotely controlling these machines. Along the way, they could see some hovercraft coming and going on the main road. It was a sign that there were humans outside the city. After traveling on this road for about 20 minutes, the hovercraft suddenly came to an abrupt stop. Some of the students who were dozing off were knocked into the seats in front of them by the inertia, and their heads hurt badly. What's wrong? Luo Fan, who was sitting in the back, walked to the driver's seat and spoke to the driver. Then he said to the students, "Students, don't panic. We found some Yuan Ko in front. The nearby patrol team is fighting with them. Don't panic. There are people fighting in front." Gahan looked up. Through the front windshield, he could see the shadows of swords and knives in front of him. Then there were all kinds of shouting and rumbling sounds. It seemed to be very intense. If only I could get out of the car and watch. Just as Gahan was thinking about this, Liuyan Ling, who was beside him, stood up. "Teacher Luo, can we get off the car and watch the seniors fight? Isn't it too dangerous?" Luo Fan said to himself worriedly. "It's fine, teacher. We're all sword bearers. Sooner or later, we'll have to fight these Yuan Ko. Besides, isn't the purpose of our training out of the city to fight? If there are 1 or 2 Yuan Ko who are not afraid of death, we can practice our skills. We have more than 30 sword bearers here," Liuyan Ling said. "That's right. I'm the one who's being too observant. Student A.O. Lin is right. Driver, please open the door." All the students can go down and have a look at what a real battle in the wild looks like. The rest of the students had already grown impatient. With a cheer, they rushed out of the car like a tide. Only Liuyan Ling, who had suggested getting out of the car at the beginning, remained in the car. Along with her was Gahan, who sat next to her. "Heaven's Inquisition, let's go." Liuyan Ling called out to her sword lady, "Heaven's Inquisition." Only then did Gahan notice that Liuyan Ling's sword lady Heaven's Inquisition, was actually sitting in the last row, quite far from Liu Ling. Unlike the other sword ladies, like Qing Pin and Cloudcast, who couldn't wait to leave their sword-bearer's side, Heaven's Inquisition seemed to be intentionally keeping a certain distance from Liu Ling. Speaking of which, I wonder how Liu Ling's ancient sword lady, Yi is doing. Gohan couldn't help but think of that stubborn red figure. After getting out of the car, they looked over. Sure enough, a team of sword-bearers were fighting with Yuan Ko, or perhaps they were surrounding and attacking a single Yuan Ko. This Yuan Ko was a wild boar that had cultivated to become a spirit. It was as big as a medium-sized bus and had a pair of fangs that were more than a meter long. The sharp fangs seemed to be able to pierce through steel plates. Gohan scanned the wild boar with his personal terminal and obtained the basic information of this Yuan Ko. Yuan Ko name: First Tribulation Wild Boar Spirit. Grade: Soul Level. Second Dimension World, Eastern Immortal World HP, 3 stars. Attack, 3 stars. Agility, 1 star. Magic Power, 1 star. Ability, a pair of extremely sharp fangs. There is a certain chance of ignoring the sword lady's personal shield and directly dealing damage to the sword lady's durability. At the same time, it has a powerful impact ability. Impact is also its secret to defeating enemies. Ultimate skill: Sharp Fangs, Giant Impact. Introduction: a wild boar that has cultivated to become a spirit. After going through its first thunder calamity, it did not choose to transform. Instead, it chose to strengthen its physical body. This gives this wild boar an extremely strong fighting and regenerative ability. It is as strong as an armored vehicle among animals. It is a very troublesome opponent. Battle record: it has appeared in the real world and has fought many times. Its strength lies in its strong physique, strength, and the piercing ability of its fangs. Its weaknesses are also very obvious. It does not have high intelligence, and its behavior is monotonous. It does not have enough agility. Battle result: has a 98% chance of winning against the wild boar spirit. It is very easy to deal with a Yuan Ko. Even if it cannot defeat it, it can escape. Its intelligence is really not high. Battle suggestion: fight it if there are more than 3 ancient sword wielders. Otherwise, just run away. There were 4 sword bearers surrounding this wild boar. Of course, they did not participate in the battle themselves. It was their sword ladies who surrounded the wild boar spirit and continuously left wounds on its body. Gohan only needed a glance to recognize the origins of the 4 sword ladies. Not mentioning the 3 ancient sword ladies, it was worth mentioning that their leader was the Snow Moon Sword, which was a treasure sword. The reason why the Snow Moon Sword was worth mentioning was because its skill was very unique. It could create a large snowstorm and change the weather. Other than that, there was nothing else worth mentioning. According to the information, 3 or more ancient sword wielders were needed to deal with the wild boar spirit. Now that there were 4 sword wielders, and one of them was a treasured sword wielder, killing the wild boar spirit would be a piece of cake. As long as these sword maidens did not clash head-on with the wild boar spirit and attacked it from the sides, they would leave bloody marks on its body and slowly drain its blood. Naturally, they would be able to kill it. Gradually, the wild boar spirit felt its strength diminish, and its breathing became more and more labored. Although it was not very intelligent, it understood that it might not be able to survive. Since it could not survive, it had to drag some humans down with it. This wild boar spirit mustered up its strength and pounced at one of the ancient sword ladies. This was the wild boar spirit's sharp tusk skill. It tried to use its meter-long tusk to leave a wound on the opponent's body. This ancient sword maiden's reaction wasn't slow, and she immediately twisted her body to avoid the wild boar's fangs. However, as the sword maiden dodged, an opening appeared in the tight encirclement. The wild boar howled and stomped its hind legs with all its strength. With a giant charge, it shot out of the encirclement like a cannonball. Oh no, it's going to attack those newbies. One of the 4 sword bearers suddenly realized that the wild boar spirit was charging towards Gohan and the spectators and immediately panicked. These newbies were the future of humanity. Losing even one of them would be a loss. The wild boar spirit's giant charge was a powerful displacement type skill. Once it was used, it could continuously accelerate until it ran a kilometer or so, or it could only stop when it crashed into something. Running for a kilometer was one thing, but if it collided with a person, it would be a big problem. With the wild boar's speed and the sharpness of its fangs, if the swordsman was hit by it, he would definitely suffer a broken bone and open abdomen. In the worst-case scenario, he might just die. If it crashed into a sword mistress, the damage would be terrifying. If the piercing effect was triggered, it would not be a problem to directly reduce the durability of an ancient sword lady to zero. At this time, the wild boar spirit's giant charge was targeting Gahan's group. More than 30 people were standing in the middle of the road. If this wild boar spirit was a bit more accurate, it would be able to knock down one of them. It might even be able to skewer 2 or 3 of them. That would be fun. Perhaps someone would die in the first battle after leaving Yuzhong City. Of course, this possibility was not high, because there were at least 3 people in the crowd who could stop this wild boar spirit. One of them was naturally Gahan. His mysterious Heaven 9 swords could send this wild boar spirit to heaven with just 5 sword chi. Another was Liu Ling. Her heaven-seeking sword could deal with this wild boar spirit with just a wave of her hand. The last one was the teacher in charge of the team, Luo Fan. His blazing brilliant sword had no problem blocking the wild boar spirit's charge, even at the cost of losing some of its shield energy. All in all, this wild boar spirit was not a big problem. The 3 of them were confident that they could kill it before the wild boar spirit killed it. Therefore, no one planned to take the initiative to fight it. They just had to wait for this wild boar spirit to charge at them, then send it on its way with a sword. However, they never expected that the heavens would not give them a chance to show off. A tornado suddenly appeared in the sky and blew towards the wild boar spirit. It actually lifted this wild boar that weighed 1 or 2 tons more than 10 meters into the sky. Then it fell heavily to the ground. The 4 sword mistresses who rushed caught up to it. Filled with anger and shame, they slashed down dozens of times. This unlucky wild boar spirit turned into a pile of minced meat and was sucked back into the dimensional vortex. When the dimensional vortex appeared, the 4 sword mistresses also sent their sword hilts into the dimensional vortex, absorbing a bit of the sword essence in the vortex. Is everyone hurt? A man in black jumped out of the field. Gahan glanced at him. He was a super handsome guy. Chapter 233. Everyone, are you all hurt? Tian Yuan, I'm late. I'm ashamed. The handsome man in black greeted Gahan and the others as soon as he came up. He even said he was ashamed of being late, as if everyone in class 2269 foreknew him. It's him, Liu Ling muttered when she saw the man's appearance. Then she turned her back, as if she didn't want him to see her. Do you know him? Gahan noticed Liu Ling's unusual behavior and asked casually. Yes, I grew up with him. How could I not know him? When Liu Ling said that she grew up with him, her tone didn't have the excitement of seeing her childhood sweetheart. This was not normal. Suddenly meeting one's childhood sweetheart thousands of kilometers away from Yanjing City was something worth celebrating no matter how one thought about it. According to the normal plot, shouldn't they be hugging each other excitedly? This Liu Ling's childhood sweetheart, who appeared out of nowhere, greeted a few confused classmates with concern. Then he turned around and saw a familiar figure. Then he rushed up excitedly. Sister Ling, why are you here? It was over. Although Liu Ling deliberately hid, she was still recognized by her sharp-eyed childhood sweetheart. Then he rushed up in surprise and hugged Liu Ling. No, he went up to greet her. He bowed to Liu Ling and greeted her like he was singing an opera. Sister Ling, Brother Tian Yuan is here to greet you. Ha ha ha. Liu Ling smiled insincerely. Su Tian Yuan, we really have fate. I've come to Yuzhong City to waste my time. I didn't expect to see you here. You're wrong, Sister Ling. It's not fate that brought us together. It's Tian Yuan. I learned that Sister Ling suddenly came to Yuzhong City, so I begged my father to let Tian Yuan come to Yuzhong City to meet you. Su Tianyuan explained in a serious manner. This made Guhan, who was watching from the side, feel that it was very inappropriate. Wouldn't it be better to directly admit that this was the fetters of fate? Why did you deliberately say that you came here? Aren't you looking for trouble for yourself? Ah, Su Tianyuan, you're really considerate. Liu Ling, thank you. Liu Ling shook her head. After all, he was her childhood sweetheart. Since he had come to find her, she could only accept her fate. You're welcome. This is what Tianyuan should do. Well, when these words came out, there was a strong smell of red scarf. Sisterling, are these brothers your friends? Why don't you introduce them to me? Su Tianyuan asked, pointing to Gahan and Song Hama, who had been watching the show. Liu Ling rolled her eyes and said in a charming voice, Okay, I'll introduce you to Gahan first. He's Su Tianyuan, my childhood sweetheart. We grew up together, but in the last 2 years, I've been in love. I treat him as a brother, but he wants to have sex with me. It's not enough that I fled to Yuzhong City, but he chased after me like an annoying bug. Then, I'll introduce you to Su Tianyuan. This guy's a bit more handsome than you. He's my future man, famous Sword Guhan. He's a very perfect man and even saved my life. It's a pity that he didn't like me. I'm working hard to pursue him and make him mine. As for the person next to him, her name is Song Hama, Gohan's childhood sweetheart. But she's not like you, who has such dirty thoughts about your childhood sweetheart. Gohan was shocked by Liu Ling's speech. What kind of amazing person would be able to reveal all the secrets of both sides when they first met and introduced each other? And it was so embarrassing. Gohan suddenly felt that Liu Ling's entire persona seemed to have collapsed. But thinking about it carefully, Liu Ling's introduction wasn't completely unreasonable and logical. Or it could be said that it was full of the smell of conspiracy. This Liu Ling actually directly put the label of rival in love on Gahan. What did this mean? This meant that Su Tianyuan, who had come to pursue Liu Ling, would put all his anger on Gahan. Then he would wholeheartedly plan how to get rid of Gahan, his competitor. He would no longer have time to bother Liu Ling, and she, Liu Ling, would be freed from a series of troubles. Wasn't this how it was played in TV dramas? It was really a F***king thing to make friends with Liu Ling. After listening to Liu Ling's explanation, Su Tianyuan's face turned red. He wanted to say something to Gahan, but at that moment, Luo Fan suddenly came up and grabbed Su Tianyuan's hand. Brother, thank you so much. If it weren't for you, my class would have. Then, Luo Fan and Su Tianyuan exchanged a lot of words. The 4 sword bearers who had besieged the wild boar also came over to apologize to Luo Fan and thank Su Tianyuan. After Su Tianyuan politely dealt with these people, Gahan had already disappeared from Su Tianyuan's side and ran back to the hovercraft. After a delay of more than 10 minutes due to the sudden change in the situation, Class 22,694's hovercraft finally made its way back to its destination. However, the situation within the hovercraft had changed. Fleeting Time Ling, who had been sitting next to Guhan, was now seated behind Guhan with a helpless expression. Song Hama had taken his place beside Guhan, and Fleeting Time Ling was seated beside Guhan. Originally, when Liu Ling boarded the hovercraft, she wanted to shove Song Hama to the back like before. However, after being glared at by Gahan, she gave up dejectedly. For the young mistress of the Liu family, this was really too embarrassing. Liu Ling knew that her act of shifting the blame to Gahan had angered him. She was thinking about how to ease the atmosphere when she found that her communication was connected. The person was actually Gahan, who was sitting in front of her. The moment Liu Ling picked up the call, she heard Gahan say, "Don't speak. Use telepathic mode to communicate with me." The communication terminal had 2 modes, verbal mode and telepathic mode. Verbal mode was like an ordinary phone call, using words to communicate. Telepathic mode didn't need to speak, but directly used telepathic thought to convey one's thoughts. All right, Liu Ling sent a telepathic thought over. Is that Su Tianyuan from the Honru family? Gahan got straight to the point. That's right. How did you know he was from the Honru family? I didn't tell you, Liu Ling was stunned. How did Gahan know everything? He had even guessed the origin of Su Tianyuan, who hadn't even appeared in 1,000 words. Is there even a need to guess? To be childhood friends with Miss Liu Ling. Who else could it be other than a direct descendant of the Jinni family? On top of that, his surname is Su, and the Hongru family has a close relationship with you. What's so hard to guess? Guhan didn't beat around the bush and directly revealed his guesses. Like Liu Ling's Liu family, the Hongru family was one of the top Jinni families of the human race. The Hongru family was also a first-tier family among the Jinni families, with a history of more than 900 years. Their ancestor was the Hongru Jinni, and Su Hongru was one of the 4 Jinni families of the human race. Su Hongru had once received guidance from the Kanzu fleeting calendar, and the Liu family greatly respected him. This didn't change even after Su Hongru became a Jinni. As a result, the Hongru family naturally had a close relationship with the Liu family. The friendship between the two families had continued from 900 years ago until today, and it hadn't been severed in between. All right, since you've already guessed it, I won't say anything else. Why did you suddenly contact me and want me to use telepathy? Just what are you planning? Liu Ling frowned. Gohan was talented and smart. He was a person with great potential. Otherwise, Liu Ling wouldn't have thought of taking him in as one of her 4 heavenly kings. However, after interacting with him for a while, she discovered that Gahan was too smart, to the point of being frighteningly smart. It was as if he could guess all of her thoughts and actions. He could even guess the origins of her friends. Interacting with a man like this really didn't feel good. She had no idea what Gahan wanted or what he wanted to do. She was completely in a passive state, which was really annoying. I want to make a deal with you. Gohan silently sent a telepathic thought over. What deal? Liu Ling immediately replied. Don't you dislike Su Tianyuan? Didn't you just throw the blame for being my boyfriend to me? Gohan paused. I can take the initiative to take the blame. Take the blame. Liu Ling shuddered. You mean you'll act as my boyfriend? Yes, Gohan admitted readily. My request is very simple. There's a guy called Green Lotus Sword Immortal. I hope you can help me find out information about him. Green Lotus Sword Immortal? An immortal level swordsman? I don't think there's such a person among the immortal level swordsmen. As a direct descendant of the Liu family, Liu Ling was familiar with almost all the information about immortal level swordsmen. She couldn't think of someone like Green Lotus Sword Immortal. I don't know if he's a swordsman. He might even be Yuan Ko. That's why I need you to help me find out information about him. The Liu family has a database second only to the council, right? After saying this, Liu Ling fell silent for a long time without replying to Gahan. If you don't want me to take the blame, then forget it. Yes, you're definitely going to be the scapegoat. I was just a little excited just now. I didn't expect the plot of this kind of romance novel to happen to me. Next, according to the script, should we pretend to be real, fall in love with each other, and finally become boyfriend and girlfriend? No, that's impossible. Why is it impossible? The beginning of the script isn't right. The correct script should be you asking me to act as your boyfriend and not me asking you. The beginning is wrong, so the rest of the story naturally won't follow the script. I didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable about romance novels. Harem novels are also like this. Then recommend me a harem novel. Lady Sword and 2D Empire are both quite good. You can take a look. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.